Well, I think we're ready to get started. Are we good to go? Yes?
No, I'm just talking to myself, Mayor. Just forget me right now. I was looking.
Oh. Well, good evening and welcome to our Nampa City Council meeting. And I welcome those that are both in person and online. And as we get started, it is a tradition with the city, and I so appreciate Boyd. Boyd, I'm going to let you say your last name because I always mess it up, but I so appreciate Boyd and his leadership in our community, both with the chaplains and with Three Oaks Ministries. And so, Boyd, come forward and I'll let you say your last name and open us in prayer. And if you wouldn't mind also leading us in the pledge afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, everybody. Oh, is it evening now? Good evening, everybody. Yeah. My last name is Chikatula, and if you're hungry, you can say chicken tuna. So whichever you would like. Before we pray, I just wanted to read a very quick scripture, and then we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. This is from Proverbs chapter 24, and the Bible says here, "A house is built by wisdom and becomes strong through common sense and understanding." And as we pray for our city council and all the leadership that you guys make on a daily basis, we pray that God will give you the wisdom that you need to make the decisions that will benefit everybody in the city of Nampa. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come before your presence this evening. We thank you for the men and women that stand before us, that you have appointed in these different roles. We thank you that it is your wisdom and your strength that holds them together every single day as they show up for duty. God, we pray for our city of Nampa that you give them wisdom as they make decisions in the name of Jesus. Decisions, Lord, that will impact generations to come for the good of every single person that lives here. We pray in the name of Jesus. God, thank you even for small things like rain that we've been praying for the water levels to go up. We just want to thank you that you are a God that answers prayers. And we pray, God, that you give them decisions and wisdom today as they facilitate all the decisions that have to be made for our city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Pastor Boyd, thank you so much. We'll begin with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Jingula.
Here.
Levi.
Present.
Haverfield.
Here.
Bauer.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Well, the next item on the agenda is it's an opportunity for us to honor someone that's very special, and that is Councilwoman Sandy Levi, as this is her last council meeting. And so we so appreciate her service. And so I'm going to go down front. And Sandy, if you would like to come down front so that we can honor you. And then council, if you all could come down. In fact, you can all come down right now, or if you want to speak from here, you're welcome to. In fact, let's start. Before you step away, if anyone has any comments they would want to make to Sandy, I'm going to go down and we have a presentation for her, and then it'd be nice if we all went down and had a photo together. So.
Okay, I guess I'll start. When I ran for city council and won in 2017, I had two mentors. One was Bruce Skog, and he went, "Oh my gosh, what have you done, community?" And the other one was Sandy. I have learned so much from Bruce, and now he's a state representative. But we've all learned so much from him. Well, another one that's been one of my mentors, of course, is Sandy. And there's not a day that I haven't called her and talked with her and asked her what to do and what does she think about all this and about these project and proposals. And she always gives a great answer and allows me to make that decision. So I tease with her once in a while because I don't talk like her. She speaks very well, and I'm not. I don't speak that well because I'm a retired police officer. I speak right away, bullet points, and that's it. Well, Sandy is smooth, so I'm hoping that she'll continue her activities of being involved in the community wherever she goes. And I just thank you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for everything that you have done for our community. Right now, she's the chairperson for the parade that's coming up, and I'm helping her. I'm the vice chair. And I'll tell you what, she runs it like a business, and it ought to be, but God bless you, Sandy. I think we're all just going to miss you.
I'm pretty short and simple. You, at these type of things, not always in other things. And Sandy and I came aboard here at the same time, 6+ years ago. But what God has used her gifts in so many ways for the benefit of this city. Thank you, Sandy.
Sandy has been the perfect example of what a public servant is. And I think everyone in this room that's here supporting her tonight can understand exactly what it is that I'm saying with that. I really appreciate her efforts and her ability to connect with the community and to connect with the people. It's such an important quality to have as a leader in the community, and I just really admire and appreciate that in her. And I appreciate all of your good questions that you ask up here. It always inspires the rest of us to ask additional questions on top of it, and you're always just really thorough in your efforts of making sure that your votes count. So I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Sandy, it's been a pleasure to serve with you. I know that your heart's in the community and that your service to the community means a lot to you. And I just wish you well in the days ahead. It should be exciting days, and we'll just watch with anticipation to see what you do next.
So I started my campaign kind of on the, I would say not the opposing side of Sandy, but just thought like I wasn't going to vote for her. I'm the opposite side of her. And throughout my campaign, my wife started telling me, hey, this Sandy lady's awesome. You need to listen to her. And sure enough, we just got to be close. I got on council, and we've gotten really close, and I just really appreciate our friendship, and I really appreciate her heart. And I could always call her and ask her, where are you on this side? And you just knew that she was usually just so solid in her convictions and where she was at. And she was always at where the citizens were. She always had their best interest, no matter what, and the purest heart you can find. So congrats, and I really hope you find happiness, and we're going to miss you.
So let's go down front, and we've got something for her, and then we can all take a picture. So we do have a, go ahead and bring it forward, and I'll let you hand it to Sandy, and I'll read. We have a gift that we give traditionally, which is just something that Sandy can take with her to remind her of her service and how much we appreciate her. And the letter says that, Dear Sandy, on behalf of the city of Nampa, please accept our sincere appreciation for your faithful service to our community, including your time on Nampa City Council for the past 7.5 years. Your extensive community involvement and volunteer time is reflective of your heart to serve. As a representative of the Nampa City Council, thank you for serving as a liaison on the Nampa Library Board, the Nampa Housing Authority, the Mayor's Teen Council, Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, Council on Aging, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and Valley Regional Transit Committee. In addition to your city council role, your service across our community represents hundreds of hours of personal time, and you are to be commended. I say that because there's a whole lot more we could have said. I just read what was on behalf of the city council side, so it's quite a bit. As you transition to a new season in your life, please take with you our gratitude and public recognition of your service to Nampa. Thank you again for your heartfelt service to our community, and may God bless you in the years to come. So we have this, and then I think we have some flowers. Right, come on up. Yep. So thank you so much from all of us. This is from all of us, the City Council. Thank you. So before we take our picture, we would love to hear a few words from you. Would you like us to hold that? There you go.
Mayor and council, thank you. I have learned so much from each of you, and thank you for sharing your level of expertise with us and your love for our community. The staff, department heads, and our employees, thank you for warmly embracing me, allowing me to work with you, to learn what it is, why you do it, and how you do it, so I could make better decisions on the bench, knowing how it really is going to affect us in the big picture of things. I want to thank those of you who voted for me both times. It has been an incredible journey, and this has been a life-changing event for me. It put confidence in me I had lost, and I saw that I had some abilities I had no idea that were hidden within me. Each one of you have touched my lives in ways I cannot even explain. It all started in 2003 when I went through the Citizens Academy, and it was fun. And everything I did, I committed to be involved in everything. And it was a lot of fun, and that kind of spearheaded me into what I'm doing today. I love my community. I get to learn, I get to teach, but more importantly, I get to serve. And that's really important to me. So I thank you again for who you are. Thank you for the impact you have in my life. And thank you for those who voted for me. Thank you if you worked on my campaign. I also want to thank some very important people in my life. I want to thank my daughter. She has been there all the way. She's encouraged me, and she has helped me to become the woman that I am today. I thank my mom because she is my biggest supporter and biggest fan. Don't mess with me because she will mess with you. And during my first campaign, she worked 10 to 12 hours a day walking every neighborhood with me, and she never missed a door. At the end of my campaign, I did have to buy her new shoes. And then most importantly, the reason I am leaving is my heart has been touched and my affections have been given to somebody very important and significant in my life. It goes back 7 years ago. When I was first running, there were 3 weeks before the campaign, I was done. Everyone had been very kind to me. There was no reason I was done other than I just was emotionally done. And this man happened to call me on a Sunday night, and he listened to me. He listened to me be at the lowest point I could be, and he heard me say, if I had the money to give back to all my supporters, I would do so and send my resignation to the paper. And again, it wasn't anything anyone had done, but because of this person having run marathons, being a coach, being a very successful manager, knowing how to work with people, he knew how to work with me. And I kid you not, when I hung up the phone, I knew this race was mine. I knew I was going to win. And so I owe a big debt of gratitude to a very special man in my life. And I'd like him to stand because I want you to know he's not just a Facebook person. He is for real. And this is my brand new husband and the reason that I'm going to Payette. And his name is Bloss. And our last name is Guerra, but I can't roll my R's, so I really suck at that. So this is my husband, Bloss. And I'd love... Kind of sounds cool, huh? Husband, wife. So after we get our picture, if it would be okay, I would love to have my family come up and get a picture with them too. And then a final extension I want to give to all of you. Thank you for wearing purple. That means a lot to me. But for those who are able, we will have a going away party at 6:15 over at the library, and you're more than welcome to come because I'd like to visit with you one-on-one. Thank you again. It's been awesome.
Well, as Sandy departs and some of her friends, we wish her the best. And we will move on at this time with our regular agenda. Did we do roll call? We did, thank you. Can I remember that? Okay, the next item on the agenda is any proposed amendments to the agenda. And we actually have two tonight. The first one is we are going to hold item 5.2 until the next meeting, so we will not be discussing that this evening on the agenda. And then this evening, I'm going to move Nampa residents wishing to speak. We have a couple of recognitions. We're going to do that before the proclamations tonight. So that'll be the next item on the agenda. After consent agenda. So are there any, other than the proposed amendments to the agenda, is there anything else that the council is aware of?
Mayor, I don't think I can say too much legally. I've spoke to legal today, but I am going to abstain on the I-9 part of the consent agenda. I will vote in favor of the remaining balance of the agenda, but not the I-9s tonight. I will abstain.
Thank you, so noted. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, with that, I would stand for a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved with the changes you've issued.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes on all but I-9.
Jangula,
Yes.
Brower,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So we are going to move to Nampa residents wishing to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item, and it's going to begin with a couple of presentations. And the first one is the Nampa School District photography display. And so I believe we have Mr. Moffett still here, and who's with the Idaho Center for Advanced Technology Commercial Photography. And Cindy Arzon, are you still here? Yes, with Career and Technical Education Director. And then I think our I see Kathleen Tuck, is Superintendent Russell here. And I don't know who else is here from this, and a few students. So our teacher, Mr. Moffett, gave the students a challenge. In fact, Mr. Moffett, rather than me reading, come on up and tell us your challenge, because they don't need to hear from me. So I would love to hear from you on the challenge that you gave the students, and then let's have the students come forward. I'll let you bring them forward and we'll recognize them. Yep. You might need to pull that mic up, and there you
Probably
go.
better off if I don't. This was a project that's really all about the students. And so it's unfair that you have me speak because I want them to speak. But I gave them a challenge to photograph the heart of Nampa, and they had 1 weekend to do it in. We brought one of my classes down on a field trip for 2 hours, and the rest of them, it was just open for the weekend. And what you see out on display in the hallway is what my students came up with. I feel that my job as an instructor is just to fill them with ideas and then let them do the problem solving and learn how to do those kinds of things. I've always taught my classes in a way that I teach students, and I just use photography as the medium. But you're seeing the results through their photography of other things that they've learned as well. So, and I think it was a very successful thing. I want to thank the mayor and all of those others involved. I think Amy was involved in giving a place to display the work. And I have hopes that we can keep a display here at City Hall to give the kids the recognition that they deserve.
Thank you. Would you like your students to come forward, the ones that are still
Absolutely.
here?
I think you need to hear more from them than you do from me, so.
So would you like to introduce yourselves and then tell the picture that you have out on the wall? And I will say that the pictures that were done by this class are out on this wall out here, and it makes that wall so incredibly awesome. I love it. And it was the Heart of Nampa was the assignment. And so would you like to share? Macy.
Okay. Hi, I'm Macy Stokes, and the picture I took out there, I named it First on the Scene, First in Our Heart, and it's the Nampa Police Station with the engine out, and there's some boots and like their gear out on the ground, and I just photographed that as the Heart of Nampa because I think highly of our first responders, and that just ties I think ties our whole community together.
Thank you.
My name's Kira Johnson. I actually have two up there. I have Protectors and Partners in Crime. I chose the two pictures. The first one is of the firefighters because just like Macy said, I really appreciate our first responders and all the work that they do. And, you know, it's basically what the Heart of Nampa is because how can we survive without them? So.
Thank you so much.
I'm Trinity Durant, and while I do appreciate our first responders, I already knew that somebody was going to be doing that. So I did Taste of Our Town, which is a typology of 9 pictures, and I did pictures of a bunch of the restaurants downtown. Because when I first think of Nampa, I always think there's so much to eat here. There's so much diversity. Like we have Vietnamese, we have Chinese, we have everything pretty much under the sun here. So I did a typology of all the restaurants downtown.
It's awesome. And I thought, boy, that'd make a great postcard.
It would.
Would council, do you have any comments? Would you like, yes?
I do, Mayor.
Yes.
You know, there's so much going on with Napa High School, and we're so proud of the students and the teachers. And one that I'm really excited that is here is the principal of Nampa, Waylon Yarborough. Would you come up for a moment, sir? When this man goes down the hall, it separates, doesn't it?
Well, I hope it separates for the right reasons, Councilman Rodriguez. Thank you. Council, Mayor, thank you for the time to be here this evening. I'm actually here to really give some recognition to the Heart of Nampa High School, if you will. I do love the photos and the things that Mr. Moffitt and I actually worked together as teachers at Columbia for a while. And he's very true to his heart in giving those students a challenge and having them put those things together. One thing I learned at Nampa High, I've had 2 different stints there, one as a vice principal a few years back, and then this is my 3rd year as the principal there. We have a very, very, very diverse student body and student populace, and it's an amazing thing. At the end of the year, we gather together around Cinco de Mayo, but we call it our Diversity Day. And at Diversity Day, we get to see a ton of things that make Nampa High School, and it's a reflection of the community of Nampa as well. So I would like to ask Ms. Housel, Ms. Cemental, and one of our students to come up tonight and talk a little bit more about Diversity Day, which is going to be this Friday, May 6th at Nampa High School for us. So,
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nadia Housel, and I teach Spanish on Nampa High. This is my 19th year teaching, and I'm also the advisor of the Foreign Language Society. And I'm here with Ms. Cimental and Crystal. She's the president of the club. And then we put together this amazing celebration. We call it also Diversity Day or Cultural Celebration Day. And it started, well, long ago, back in probably 2000. I started teaching in Nampa in 2002, and back then it was Cinco de Mayo. But we decided to change it, to include everybody. We wanted to make it an amazing celebration because that's what Nampa is a unique school with great students that make it great. And we're so excited because this is our now tradition. And Crystal is gonna talk to you about how they put together this celebration, because I'm just the advisor. I help with some of the logistics, but she and the students are the ones contacting vendors and making this celebration happen.
Hello, my name is Crystal Napoles. I am a senior at Nampa High School, and I am the current president of Foreign Language Society. Planning Cultural Day was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do, but it was also one of the most fun things I've experienced. I take a great pride in saying that me and my peers have worked really hard to put this together. It is this Friday, May 6th, and it is basically a big celebration of all the different cultures and a big celebration of the students' heritage. We want students to feel proud of where they come from and their culture, and we contacted vendors and we got a sound system. We have performances from traditional Mexican folk dancers to Polynesian dancers that are going to perform. And overall, it's just a big, fun celebration. I'm actually gonna hand you guys flyers if that's okay.
Thank you.
And with Mr. Garber's okay, I would like to formally invite you guys to come if you guys, of course, if you guys are free. But it is usually just a student event, but it would be an honor if you guys could come and join us. It's from 10:49 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's during our lunch, but there'll be a lot of amazing food. So if it's something you guys are willing to participate in, it is definitely a great show of our Nampa pride. So yeah, thank you.
And I'm Monica Cimental. I'm the College and Career Advisor at Nampa High. This year, I partner up with Ms. Housel, and we just got together, and she said, how can I support you? So we've been able to take students on field trips or have motivational speakers come to Nampa High. And so I also asked her, hey, is it okay if I have kind of like a job fair? So we'll have a few Amazon or other, so students can have some other opportunities. But yeah, they've mentioned, it's that one celebration everybody looks forward to at the end of the year.
if I may, one more thing. The young lady that mentioned about the food, that you will see at Nampa High on Friday. So if you do come, please check into the front office. School safety is a big deal. We want to make sure that you're supposed to be there, but please don't hesitate to come. We'd love to have you. I'm super proud of Crystal and the Foreign Language Society, Ms. Housel, and Monica, and the work they've done this year. They've developed a relationship with Chairman Rodriguez, and we've done a really good job of starting to broaden some horizons and make some connections there. So super excited for where we're going to be heading, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I would love to shake your hands before you go. I didn't meet you ahead of time because we're so busy, so come forward. Thank you so much. And then as they're coming, thank you guys for your work. Thank you for your work. Thank you.
Mayor, would it be okay if you could take a picture with them before they left?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I do have to say real quickly, so before I come down, this is National Teacher Appreciation
Yep.
Week, and so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you guys do. Mr. Moffett, thank you too. National Teacher Appreciation Week, thank you for being amazing. How many years have you been teaching, may I ask? 16 years, and how about?
15 years.
This is my 16th year in education, so
Wow.
I have not been lucky enough to stay in the classroom.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, guys. We'll come down, take a quick, or do you want to, how about if we all squeeze here and they stand right here?
Okay, that'll work.
Okay.
Mayor, just quickly, I'm going to miss this because NNU is having commencement weekend, Friday, whatever, but please tell all your students to apply to NNU, okay? I'm not shy about that.
Come on over, guys. Let's all kind of squeeze center. Maybe Darrell, you can be right. Are you, yes? Yes. Are you there? You good? Thank you so much for coming. Take care. I know, so they'll understand why, yeah.
Thank you, Nadia. Nadia.
So we are still in this time frame of anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item. Did we have anyone signed up tonight?
No, we did not, Madam
We
Mayor.
did not. Is there anyone here that had intended to speak this evening that did not get signed up? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which are our proclamations. So we actually have 3 proclamations this evening, and the first proclamation we're going to do is building safety. And Patrick, I think you're going to receive this in just a minute, and I'll read it quickly. Whereas the City of Nampa is committed to recognizing that our growth, prosperity, and quality of life depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play in everyday life. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant public servants and professionals, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, design professionals, builders, and tradespeople, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, and federal officials who are experts in the building environment, in the built environment, to create and implement effective building codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Safety for All, Building Codes in Action, is the theme for Building Safety Month 2022, encourages us all to raise awareness about construction and inspection of safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation and fire prevention, and energy conservation to all of our benefit. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to encourage or acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and state and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Debbie Kling of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 in the City of Nampa as Building Safety Month. And I encourage our citizens to join with their community in participation of Building Safety Month activities. As Patrick comes forward for me to hand him his proclamation, I just want to say thank you to Patrick. He doesn't have an easy job, and lately we've had so many hard conversations, oh my goodness, around code enforcement. And it is not an easy job to serve in his capacity. And I just want to say thank you so much for your willingness to hear the hard conversations and walk through the challenging, sometimes citizen interactions regarding building code. It is not easy. And so to try to to serve the citizens, but also adhere to building code, which is our responsibility, is sometimes tenuous. I mean, it's just difficult, so thank you. And I don't know if you'd like to share anything, but thank you so much. Oh, that was great. This next proclamation, it is so good to see. This is National Small Business Week. And it is so wonderful to have Irene Gonzalez here because I used to work with her as I was with the chamber, and I so appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the SBA in serving our small businesses. And small business is the core of our community. It is extremely important. And this proclamation is, whereas America's strongest economic growth in almost 40 years has been driven by the resilience of our small businesses, who, despite a worldwide pandemic, continue to pioneer innovative solutions to our country's greatest challenges and create opportunities for families and workers. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street, to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, to the small manufacturers driving our competitiveness on the global stage, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas when we support small business, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. Whereas because this country's 32.5 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the City of Nampa supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure that our local communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Debbie Kling of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the week of May 1 through 7, 2022 in the City of Nampa as National Small Business Week. And I urge the residents of our community and communities across our city and the country to support small businesses and merchants during National Small Business Week and throughout the year. Irene, thank you for coming forward, and thank you for all you do. Thank you. You can share a few words with us. Feel free to share.
Thank you, Mayor. Pretty much they said it all, right? But this is the special week that we do put special emphasis on our small businesses. Our theme this week is to, and I just looked at it too. I just drew a blank.
That's okay. It's because you're standing here. It's just the way it happens.
I just looked at it, and I will remember as soon as I sit down. Day in and day out. That's my job, is to help those that are starting, work with existing businesses, help them through these last couple of years has just been amazing. And the student that was up here earlier about the pictures, what she felt was the heart of Nampa was the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the heart. That is where we are helping our small businesses. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Irene, I want to thank you personally because it's not that this is your job. This is your heart and your life. I see you. Where did I just see you? You were serving at, let's see, something.
I was helping it was a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And we were, I was serving meals. It was for the homeless.
It was the Catch
It was
fundraiser.
Catch. Mm-hmm.
So, but it's when I think of you, I think of the power of one. Our small businesses, it's one person that's willing to make a difference, that serves in our schools. You're engaged in all elements of community. It's not just about your job with the Small Business Administration. So I would say, let's let your service be an inspiration to all of us. And we do need to support our small businesses because they are the core of our community. So thank you for all you do.
And
thank you for being here. Take care.
Oh, and I just remembered, build a better America through entrepreneurship.
Oh, there you go. Knew you'd get it, yeah. We have one last proclamation. We don't usually have this many in one evening, but we have, it's last but not least. And I am so thrilled to mention this one too. This is Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And so we get to honor our clerks this week. So the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is a time-honored and vital part of our local government, and it exists throughout the world. And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks is the oldest among public servants, I didn't know that. And whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, try saying that a couple more times, provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and the agencies of government at other levels. And whereas the professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality, impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas they continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. It is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Klee, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the week of May 1 through 7 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. And I will say, it's wonderful to get to present this to you and to say thank you. So, Shar, we so appreciate you as our new clerk, and to all of our clerks that serve. And I think this is a wonderful reminder for us to all understand how important the role of clerk is. It's what keeps us in line. They're the ones that make sure that we adhere to, follow the rules, that our notifications take place. They are the keeper of all records. And it is a task that I'm glad that I don't have to do. And I so appreciate the work of our clerk's office. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on with our agenda. So the next item on the agenda are agency and commission reports, of which we have none. Staff communications, and we have no staff communications this evening. So we are going to move right into new business items. And we will start with new business item 5.1. This is an action item. And this is by resolution to authorize the mayor to sign the Leading Idaho Local Bridge Program Memorandum of Understanding and Public Works staff to submit the grant application for the 14th Avenue North Indian Creek Bridge Replacement Project. This has been reviewed and approved by legal. Would you like Tom to speak on this item this evening? Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to authorize the MOU and the to develop the grant application as proposed.
Thank you, Randy. Councilman Haverfield, and a second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jangula.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 5.2, as discussed earlier, will be postponed to the next meeting. Item 5.3 is an action item. This is to authorize the engineering staff to proceed with negotiations for right-of-way acquisition required to construct the Franklin Boulevard and Karcher Road intersection improvements project up to the estimated amount of $450,000. This is approved in the FY22 budget.
So moved as stated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
No.
Jangula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Item 5.4 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign the change order for the annual water line replacement FY22 project with DASCO of Idaho for $327,295, and this is approved in the FY22 budget.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Changula,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 5.5 is an action item. This is to authorize an agreement that authorizes the Nampa Parks and Recreation to contract with Jensen Belt for the amount not to exceed $153,680 to complete the design and construction management for Brant Park Phase 3. This is approved in the FY22 budget via the Parks and Rec impact fees.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Changula,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our new business items. We're going to move over to unfinished business. And we will begin with item 7.1. And this is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for zoning map amendment to suburban residential, from suburban residential to two-family duplex residential zoning district for a planned unit subdivision for Sugar Creek Townhomes. This is for John Dixon representing Bunker Development, and I'll allow you to go ahead and read through it. And this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide an RD two-family duplex residential zone designation for certain lands commonly known as parcels R3188200000, R3188800000, and R3188701000, located at 2205 3rd Street North, 0 Sugar Street, and 0 East Victory Road, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 7.68 acres, more or less, determining that said zoning is the best interest of the citizens and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, rezoning said property from RA suburban residential to RD two-family duplex residential, providing for recordation, instructing the city engineer to designate said property as RD two-family duplex residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, subject to any conditions imposed by the city council, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as presented and read to us this evening under suspension of rules.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Changula,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.2 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to light industrial at 17530 Midland Boulevard for Kent Brown representing Adler Midland LLC, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
You're ready, though, so you get it. Okay.
There must be a basketball game somewhere.
All right.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 17530 Midland Boulevard, Nampa, Idaho, county parcel R3086301000, comprising approximately .36 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned IL Light Industrial, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as IL Light Industrial on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jingula,
Yep.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer. All in favor, motion carries.
What was that?
Item 7.3 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for a zoning map amendment from RS6 to suburban residential and suburban residential to two-family residential duplex at 941 Davis Avenue for Taylor Jean Holmes. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide an RD two-family residential zone designation for certain lands commonly known 941 Davis Avenue, Nampa, Idaho. County parcel R16163000000, comprising approximately 1.67 acres more or less and approximately 0.33 acres of adjacent public right-of-way. Determining that said zoning is the best interest of the citizens and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Rezoning said property from RS6, single-family residential 6,000 square feet, and RA suburban residential to RD two-family residential duplex. Providing for recordation, instructing the city engineer to designate said property as RD, two-family residential duplex on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, subject to the terms of that certain development agreement entered into between the applicant and the city of Nampa, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling, I believe I need to recuse myself from this item.
Okay, thank you. What is the will of the council?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jingula,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Bauer. All in favor, motion carries.
So we are at a point that we have completed all of the business, with the exception of the public hearings. We do have an executive session, but I don't think that we can accomplish it in the about 8 minutes that we have. I believe our first public hearing this evening is the CDBG funding allocation, and Matt Jameson is here. So I think we will just pause, take a 5-minute break, and then we will be back in our seats a couple minutes before, and we'll start promptly at 6:30. So we'll have a brief break. Back to our seats and we'll get started.
I'll think of something of to say, and I can do that for you.
Excuse me. Excuse me for coughing.
You can sing for us if you want.
We'll clear the room out.
Okay, so we are ready for our public hearing section of our agenda. This is item 6.1, and this is an action item, and this is our CDBG funding allocation for the public service allocation. And Matt, thank you for being here tonight.
Mayor Clean, Council. Pleasure to be here again. We are going to, if you recall, the last council meeting, we funded the non-public service activities for the year, for the 2022 program year. Today, we're going to focus on the public service applications side of our grant with just a few other little tidbits mixed in here because of some upcoming changes that I think we might want to implement to make it a little more effective moving forward. So we will talk a little bit about our funding sources, just to remind you which type we have. I'll go over quickly the applications received, and then to some degree, I'll narrow out the two that I've planned to pull out and justify the reasons for the other three fundings. And then I'll give you a quick overview of the previous 5 years funding allocation history, and then we'll leave it off with the funding recommendation. So. You guys are well aware, we have, currently we're going to be talking and funding out of our regular public service, or our regular CDBG grant funds. We currently still have CDBG CV CARES Act funding that is also a separate pool that we can fund public service from. But for today's action item, we will be funding out of the regular grant bucket of funding. So just wanted to remind you we have both. This year we received applications from 5 subrecipients. We had Advocates Against Family Violence, Family Justice Center, Jesse Tree, Meals on Wheels, Salvation Army, all of which have been prior subrecipients during this current 5-year consolidated plan that we're just finishing up. We are going to probably recommend, go back one, Krista. We're going to recommend 3 out of these 5 for funding today. The reason that we're only doing 3 is the Advocates Against Family Violence currently has CARES Act funding for basically what they're applying for funds for in the 2023 fiscal year. So they will have enough money in that program year. We didn't feel justified in giving additional funds. And then same with Jesse Tree. They don't have any current funding, but what they're applying for we think would be a good fit for the CARES Act funding. And so I'm going to come back to you at the next council meeting and ask to fund a small portion of our remaining CARES Act funds to Jesse Tree to carry that particular activity out. They are not needing staff time. That will be all money that goes to rent assistance. So I thought that was a great candidate for the CARES Act funding. And so the remaining 3 is what we will be recommending we fund today. Part of, oh, go ahead, sorry, Krista, switch slides. As you can see, we're doing, again, same as last year, we're doing kind of an equal share of the funding divided 4 ways. I know I've mentioned we're only funding 3 applicants, Salvation Army, Nampa Family Justice, and Meals on Wheels. This year, we're proposing to do something slightly different, which is to just fund, similarly to the housing pool of funds, we want to fund the last and 4th placeholder for public service to something that we can go out and try to identify a need that has not been met yet from our current round of applicants. On the next slide, we'll go over this in a little more detail, but we've been getting basically the same 5 applicants for the last 5 years. And there's other needs in our community that are going unmet. And so we thought this year, this will be the start of our new 5-year con plan. So we'd love to start to figure out a way to try to get some better penetration in the community on things that we think are important to fund. And every year we'll come to council and possibly look at ways that we can do that more effectively. I'll specifically come to you on the next workshop and give you 2 examples that other communities are doing that we think would be very effective. And so Krista, if you can go to the next slide. This is basically the previous 5-year funding history for the for the 6 applicants that we've had historically over the last 5 years. This does include CARES Act money, so if it seems like some are really overinflated, like the Salvation Army, we did receive a lot of money to keep the shelter running for the last year. So, and St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels, and Ketchikan Canyon County, we just allocated $124,000 to them from CARES Act funds. So those are going to be a little higher. The rest of them are true just annual allocations. But this is basically what we've been able to fund over the last 5 years, and we feel like we can do a little better job of getting a better mix. These are very housing focused with the exception of Meals on Wheels. So we want to try to make a better, direct the funding to more things in the community and get some more results into different categories. So, and then Krista. So our final recommendation for funding would be to fund Salvation Army, Nampa Family Justice, and Meals on Wheels equally at $28,720, leaving that last category of public service just funded in general, and we will come back to council with some potential ideas on where we can allocate those funds. We're hoping right now to try to find some partner that we can work in the mental health, specifically with the youth and the mental health, if we can. But that would be our funding recommendation with a total allocation of $114,880 in CDBG public service funds. And I'll stand for any questions if you have any.
Mayor?
Yes.
So the mental health with youth services, does that have anything to do with housing, or is it all just counseling type services?
I think it would just be counseling type. What we've historically always funded, with the exception of Meals on Wheels, has been housing oriented public services. And so we were hoping to this will be the first year of our new 5-year consolidated plan. So we're trying to find ways to find additional, what are identified as high needs, both in our last plan and our current plan, find ways to try to work with those City of Nampa partners. We're not getting a lot of applications outside of the 5 that we've currently funded in the past. So we're trying to find ways to go and do more of a targeted approach, identify what we want to fund with council's support, of course, and then we'll go out and try to find partners that we think would be a good fit to meet that need in the community.
So the Lighthouse closing, have we seen less of a need for housing as far as for the needy, or is?
Well, I think we'll always have a need with the Lighthouse and I'm hearing that we'll have still a growing need for homeless shelter. It's not as heavily funded in the HUD world as it used to be. Now that, at least with our funding, they focus more on rapid rehousing. We participated in shelters with the CARES Act money because we were allowed to give enough to make a difference. Our normal public service allocation, because typically we're capped, we weren't on the CARES Act side, so we could fund quite a bit more. At $28,000, it's not going to usually be enough to really make a dent in a homeless shelter budget, but it would allow for probably a partial staff member's time. But we'll still focus on housing. We just may not do it with 4 subrecipients. We'll try to do it with 1 or 2 and then try to find something else that we can try to partner on to make a difference in the community.
Thanks, Matt.
So I would like to say that I visited with Matt about this and asked him specifically to do this, because we have a very high need right now for mental health and around youth. And we are looking at a youth crisis center that it would be nice to have in our community. And what we found is that it qualifies under the CDBG funding, but a lot of times it may be something that is new. And one of the goals with CDBG funding is that we help fund something new. And then they establish themselves and then they move on and we get to fund another new project. And in this case, we know that there is a great need around youth mental health. And so I asked Matt if we could pause and come back and take a look and work in our community and find out how we can make the greatest impact with these dollars in a positive way with our youth related to mental health issues.
Mayor, is this a conversation that we're having with the county as well?
Yes, and Southwest District Health regarding a youth crisis center, but I don't know that it would even apply to that project. So it wasn't just with that in mind, but it was really with it in mind that we've had a lot of community conversations about our young people and mental health. And so how do we best impact that? And so I think that's something that we need to look at. And if we can help support that in our community with CDBG funds, that was my thought.
And there have been I participate in a lot of meetings that are around food access and housing and others, and always what trickles in is mental health. At some point in the conversation, it seems more increasingly recently, and there are a few partners that we work with on those other two aspects that have started to make headway as well into mental health, trying to find low cost and affordable ways for people to get the need or to get mental health services. So there are several current players in Nampa that are trying to make inroads into that particular activity. But again, in the end, we have to still do a review and make sure they're eligible, and whatever that they want the funding for is something we can pay for. But which is why we wanted to just reserve one placeholder to try to go out and vet some partners to see if we can actually participate and work with them, and that they would be a good partner to use our funding, because again, we always have to make sure we're minimizing a risk. But
Are there any other
Mayor,
questions? Yes.
So, Matt, here it says administration and planning capped at 20% and I assume that's for employees, correct?
employees and I guess general administrative and planning costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that, does 2 employees is this what this includes?
It'll include a portion of 3 employees. We funded that one at the last council meeting. Those I kind of left grayed out and highlighted the one in the middle, public service. That's the one we're voting on today.
Yes.
We've already allocated the administrative and planning, but that would fund a portion of the 3 staff members in CDBG's staff time, as well as the consolidated planning process that we're going through currently this year. And then, any training or anything we might do, software costs, things of that nature to run the programs we run.
Yes, I know that. My next question was, is any, even in the COVID money as compared to the CDBG, are there going to be more monies funded for the employees, for your staff?
We were going to look at, because we've recently allocated $124,000 to catch of Canyon County. They'll probably run that money through 2023 and maybe into part of 2024. So we were going to, at this actually next council meeting, I was going to ask council to allocate additional CARES Act funds. We didn't take the full admin amount at the time. We took what we thought we needed to try to get more money in the community. But with these activities that will likely carry through the 2023 and partially into 2024, we thought we'd allocate just enough money to cover Hannah's time, which is the one that we've hired to help me administer those particular subrecipients and monitor those the public service recipients on that side of the coin. So.
Okay, so you're anticipating already to take care of that.
Yeah, we'll look at it again. I think we just want to make sure that we have it available to us. Again, if it turns out they spend the money really fast and we don't need it, and we think that the rest are going to spin out before the end of that, we can actually go back and just ask you to just kind of claw some of that money back, and we can put it to one of the subrecipients that spent their money if we think they can get it done before the end of the program year. So it's not always set in stone. We just like to make sure we have it in there so that we can, if it needs be in the next fiscal year, we can utilize it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mayor?
Yes.
Matt, really quick, I'm just confused. So on the money that we're talking about specifically here,
Yes.
does this have a cap as far as what % goes to employees' salaries?
No, it's only capped in the amount we can fund in general. So we're capped at 15% of our current grant allocation plus prior year's prior year's program income funding. And so we typically don't include the prior year's program income. It's not a substantial amount, but that gives us just a little bit of cushion so that if something weird happened and we had a rounding area where we wouldn't run afoul of that 15%. But what we're capped at is we can't spend more than 15% of the current year's grant allocation on public service activities, but there's typically no cap on salaries. If they're providing salaries and rent assistance, I like to see the majority of the funding go to rent, and I try to see them leverage their staff time. In some cases, they have all the money they need for rent, and what they're looking for is just a portion of a staff person to administer and provide case management. So it kind of depends on the applicant, but if they're getting funding for both sides of that coin for us, if we're doing rent assistance and staff time, then I try to I really want them to leverage staff time with their other funds and put more of our money into direct assistance to make sure that we're not just paying for staff. I like the money to go to the end recipient if we can. If we can't, staff time is a clean place for us to live.
Yeah, because that's kind of my concern just a little bit is where I'm seeing, so I sent you an email and I appreciate your response. It was very helpful. But where like Meals on Wheels there, the full amount is going to fund staff. And then we have the Advocates Against Family Violence, but we're not doing that one, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then Nampa Justice, it's gonna be a portion, I don't know what that portion is, but Salvation Army also is the full amount is going towards salary. So that's not concerning, that's typical?
In CDBG, I'm not required to give a certain amount of staff time and some to direct benefit. If they're asking for both, I want to make sure that they're leveraging, that they have to have at least 100% match on the funds that they ask me for. So if they ask me for $30,000, they have to also have $30,000 of their own to match it. So I try to have them leverage it the best they can, their own staff time, and then we try to put more of our money towards the direct benefit. If they're coming and asking just for staff time, because that's the piece that that's the gap in their funding. So whenever we look at an application, we have an application for funding, they're showing me what their current anticipated, either committed or uncommitted funding is, and then we fund the gap. So we try to look for what they're missing in their budget, and sometimes it's just what they're applying for is staff time. And I think in our email exchange, staff time is a really clean place for me to live on compliance because it's really easy documentation. It's a time card review. It's a payroll statement. It's really common and known documents that anybody in our department could easily review and say, yep, they did it right. They calculated correctly. So it's a really kind of a low-hanging fruit for us to participate in because it's really low risk. And some other things we might fund gets a little harder for them to document. Like with Meals on Wheels, they have a lot of food costs, but that gets really cloudy because of the way that they account for it in their own internal system. It's really hard to piece out our direct share of that cost. So it's easier for me to go in staff time.
So they're getting extra funding from other communities then?
Yeah, not communities, but they'll usually they get donations. I think they get other grant funds. But sometimes those grant funds are very specifically tied to a certain piece of their activity, and so that can't cross over. Ours are flexible enough they can use it for whatever they need to. In most cases, like I say, if they're, like for instance with Jesse Tree, they have all the staff time they need. They wanted money for direct benefits. So I'm thinking, great, good candidate for CARES Act because we can put more money there and they can give it all away. And so it's a little easier. And that's still an easy place to comply with because it's just verifying a check was paid to a landlord, that it shows that they were behind on rent, things like that are easy to verify. But staff time is a really, typically a very easy and more common thing for CDBG to participate in.
And then one more thing, I like the idea of the mental health thing. I think that's gonna be pretty crucial moving forward in our community, just considering what we've experienced in the youth. But I looked on HUD.gov, so that extra remaining $28,700 that's gonna be sitting if we move this route, we can use it for maintenance, right? Repairs on existing streets, parks, playgrounds, water, sewer facilities, neighborhoods, et cetera.
We could always use funding. In fact, we've allocated that funding already in the prior allocation. If for some reason we are unable to find a partner for whatever public service thing we identify and we go after and we decide, they just don't have the capacity or they don't have the will to work with federal money, whatever it might be, and we can't find a partner in a reasonable amount of time, then we can do one of two things. We can sit on that funding and it just goes into next year's allocation. We just give it out next year to whatever we want to give it to. It becomes funds available to commit. Or we could come back to council, say we haven't found anybody we can partner with. We'd love to take that money back out of public service and we need to reallocate it to an additional line item we've already funded. So if we say we could give more money to the park program and they could make one more additional thing, or the sidewalk could get one more ADA ramp, then we can certainly do that. It would just take the will of council, and then we would just go and update our action plan. So we can always move it. It would require you to do it because it would be considered a minor amendment.
We all took the wheelchair challenge, and we know there's a really great need in our community for updated sidewalks and ADA ramps and things like that. So I would like to see that money going towards something of that nature. That's just my personal preference. But as far as they talked to us about putting doorbells on public buildings where they have to make payments or things like that, where they need to get in, would that fall under that category?
Well, we're gonna look closely at, right now it's all into ADA improvements. I think it's 269,000 that we've allocated. 200 of that, give or take, is gonna go towards possibly with council's will of council, I guess, we're gonna recommend putting that towards a design plan for downtown just for that reason, to get all of the ADA ramps and things designed so that anytime somebody makes an improvement down there, we have the plan in place, they just can grab it and go. So it'll make it more, I think, effective overall to get that work done. And then we're also going to be helping contribute and pay for a 504, I'm drawing a blank on it now, our accessibility plan. So that we're going to look at all of our public buildings. We might be looking at contributing in a plan with that would identify all the needs in our current public facilities. And then if one of those things that's identified as a doorbell, I think that would be, as we're doing those remodels, that'd be something that we would want to definitely factor in. And I'm sure as we're doing this plan, we'll be consulting more people like that helped you with that wheelchair challenge to give us better ideas on how we can make it more accessible.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Mayor, I will have, I don't know if it's appropriate, though, to actually call people up from the audience that are directors, or we want to do that after the...
Well, I tell you what we could do during our public hearing, because this is the time to move into the public hearing. And so we only have one person signed up for the public hearing, but it might be good if you're wanting to hear from some of the providers that are here, because I see several in the audience, to go ahead and have them come forward during the public hearing timeframe, because that's a perfect time to hear from them. So thank you for mentioning that. So Matt, we'll have you back if we have further questions. This is a public hearing, and it is time to move into that. And we only have one person signed up, so the first person to speak is?
It is Linda Clark, and she is in support of this.
You can both come up and talk.
Just sign up. Uh-oh.
Okay, I was going to defer to Tanya. I'm here with, okay, we'll do this together. I'm here with Meals on Wheels for St. Alphonsus, and this is Tanya, who is the program director. So I'll let her speak first, if that's okay, and then I'll pick up and make a few remarks.
Yes.
So on behalf of St. Alphonsus Medical Center and the Meals on Wheels program, I just thank you for taking the time to hear us, and I thank you for your continued support of our program. So as many of you know, Meals on Wheels is a program that serves meals to the poor and underserved, vulnerable senior citizens in our community. We provide one hot meal a day, seven meals a week, to seniors who are 60 and over, homebound, and living in the city of Nampa. And just a couple of points, I just wanted you guys to know that in this last year, we've served 55,000 meals to our homebound seniors. In the 2017-2018 year, we averaged 99 meals a day. In 2020 through the 21 year, we served an average of 183, up from 99. And currently, we're serving approximately 195 meals a day. So, and we attribute those gains to the aging baby boomers in our community. So we just thank you for your consideration, and this is a hugely important program. It's really my heart and soul. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I believe in it, and I thank you for your support.
Tanya, thank you so much. And can you go ahead, just for our records, for our clerk, give your address? And you can give your work address if you would like with St. Alphonsus.
Yes, so my work address is 4300 East Flamingo Avenue in Nampa.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. Council, do you have any questions? Yes.
Hey, you want to go first, or?
You.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for all you do. And question first, and then how many volunteers now do you have that are delivering?
We're down right now. We're up to about 19. I've said it before, you're all welcome anytime.
He's retired, so I'm putting pressure on him.
Yeah, pre-COVID, we had about 40 volunteers, and right now we have about 19, but we are steadily rebuilding that base.
And so can you specifically communicate with us? I realize this is not a huge amount of money, $28,720, but it is going to all salaries. Would you confirm that?
Yes.
And then what purpose? Yeah, I don't need names or anything of that sort, but what type of salary type of, as far as designation are you making here?
Aside from myself, we're utilizing food and nutrition service staff members from St. Alphonsus to help us fill in those empty spots that we're missing because we're short on volunteers. So
you're just kind of filling in those areas. And in the past, have we not also, is that where you've requested in the past too, is mainly for salary?
Well, actually, I think in the past it's been more, as Matt mentioned, the sort of more convoluted area of food. Certain things can only pay for food, but the containers in the film aren't included, and it gets a little bit convoluted. So in the past, the salary part is fairly new.
Okay. And so how can we, now that COVID is somewhat hopefully lifted, in my opinion, it is lifted, what type of marketing or what is Sandy Now's doing to try to get volunteers that you're not actually having to pay salary to deliver?
We're always reaching out. I mean, I speak at different churches. I reach out to different churches in our area. I go to different schools and speak to their students. And so we always do that sort of thing. And we are starting to see them trickle in. And also, more and more of our former volunteers who were not volunteering during COVID are now becoming more and more comfortable with coming back. So we're seeing some of them come back as well. And I regularly am reaching out to them.
Good. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just really quick, is there an age limit for your drivers and stuff? I mean, do they just have to have a driver's license? Can teenagers volunteer? I guess is
So
what I'm getting at.
they have to be 18 or over.
okay.
Yes.
On my mission for like 9 months, I did this about twice a week for 9 months straight. These people definitely need it. They're usually on oxygen.
Well, there's no question.
And might I add as well, so I did sort of talk about the food component, but what our volunteers do is so much more than just a meal once a day. So it's a well check really. It's a hi, how are you doing? A friendly smile, maybe a couple of minutes, especially, our volunteers are trained to get a feel for, does somebody need a couple of minutes today? And so it is much more than just a meal. It's a well check. And it's some company sometimes. In many cases, the seniors that we serve, some of them have really great family support, and some of them just don't have any family here. And so we may be the only people that they see on any given day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate you speaking.
Thank you.
Linda, did you have anything else to share? Okay, yes.
So my name is Linda Clark, and I am here in support of the Meals on Wheels program. I want to say, first of all, it feels like old home week coming back here, and I'm so glad to be back. Rodney, Christy, I think you have some tremendous staff, including these two. I'm so glad to see, I don't know if he left, but Cliff Long, I think you're very, very fortunate to have Cliff back in Nampa. And I'm sure there are lots of other staff that I have had the opportunity to work with, but I don't know currently. But I just think Nampa does very well to have a strong staff and a strong council. I might say in terms of being here in support of the Meals on Wheels program for CDBG, as some of you know, I have sat on both sides of the podium here, and I think in my 13 plus years of sitting on city council, CDBG was one of the most satisfying things that I did. It really, truly does provide service within the community that makes a difference to people. It reinforces Nampa as a caring community, and it's a process that works to make sure that the money gets to where it needs to be. I think Matt has done a tremendous job, and from my end, and I do help write the application for St. Alphonsus, you have exceptional staff in community development who make it they're very open, very easy to work with, and so on. So I just want to compliment the city in terms of all of that. I might say a couple of things. I scribbled down a few things before I came, but I wanted to, and Matt answered this, of course, and Tanya did to some degree. Tanya did as well. But in terms of the question on staff time and leveraging staff time, yes, in our application, this is the first time that we have asked for CDBG to fund staff. And Matt knows that.
It's my fault.
Yeah, he's the one that requested that we go that direction, but he knows it better than I do in terms of the reporting end of it. I don't do the reporting end of it. He works with Tanya, who does that. But I want to say the only paid person there's a difference in staff time between administrative staff and program staff. And that's not just true on Meals on Wheels. So all of the administrative staff, which includes accounting, oversight, all kinds of things, those are paid by St. Alphonsus. The only paid staff person that is in the application is Tanya, who is program staff and is essential in terms of running the program. So maybe that helps in some respect. Okay, I'll emphasize one more thing and then I will quit. Just in terms of costs, what City Council does is really important to us. In 2021, when I wrote the application for the year that started 2021, our budget was $367,715. This year, our budget is $489,206. So it's gone up tremendously, and in part, as others have said, because of the increase in use. So thank you. Sorry, I ran over.
Linda, I just want to say it is wonderful to see you. And thank you so much for all that you shared. That was very informative. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor, here I go again. She's not only a prestigious emeritus council member, but she's also a prestigious alumna of NNU.
Of course. Of course.
Awesome. So those are the only ones that we have signed up to speak, but I would like to ask if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this grant process going on right now that did not get signed up. We would like to give anyone an opportunity to speak.
Can I call someone now, Mayor, or not?
If you want to.
Okay, so Marjorie, can you? Oh, I know, you love me. That's why you left Nampa, to get away from me, right? She's over in Caldwell, but she's still doing wonderful
Margie
things.
Potter with Salvation Army, 1412 4th Street South. I still know the address.
So the same question, Margie, if I may. Now, you have been familiar with
Yeah,
Rapid
I work
Housing.
with
I don't
the
know
grant
if
writer.
Your current job in Caldwell is still,
Correct. I work closely with the grant writer, so I know what's going
Can you also speak to
on.
the same thing that I asked Tanya as far as where these funds are going as far as salary? Understanding from Matt, they are going to salary
Yes.
supplements.
And we do, we work closely with Matt, and salaries does seem to be the
Did he suggest that to
simplest
you
area.
also?
Yeah,
Okay.
and those are really good questions, Counselor Jangala, that you were asking. And salaries, you know, we have to have people that have trauma-informed care. We have a lot of volunteers, but not always, they're not trained with, when you're dealing with the homeless community and people in crisis, they need that professional person to deal with, you know, their situations. So we can have all the volunteers we want, we still have to have those people there. And then, you know, most of our donations come from the community and other grants, so we do have matching grants for that. Thank
Are you
you.
liking Caldwell?
I love it, but I'm still here, and I live in Nampa, and hopefully I'll be working with Canyon County Development. So it's really hard to not bring Nampa into everything because I love Nampa. So you'll still see me around.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that wanted to testify this evening? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any additional, Matt, do you have any closing
I
comments?
just would
or-
like to fully own the staff time thing. I don't want to make it seem like, because to me, it's, again, we're funding the need. To me, it's just a really clean, compliant way to fund. And so if I'm funding cardboard boxes to put the meals in, at some point, we're just offsetting some portion of their budget that they would just then use for staff time. So to me, it's kind of a wash either way. I just want to pick the most compliant thing. So I've slowly been trying to get people to change what they're applying for funding for, because then it's really easy to identify and make sure if HUD had walked in the door tomorrow, it would be easy for me to verify and show what I've funded. So staff time's nice and clean.
Would it be correct to say, one of the things that I have seen is that in certain grant environments, they will fund other things but will not fund staffing costs, which makes it really difficult on the administrative side. And so sometimes where CDBG will fund staffing, it's a great use of those funds because other grants will not fund staff.
Yeah,
A lot of our grants
yes, a lot of
do
grants
not.
or even, they have very specific limitations on what it can be used for. So, but again, I always offer it to them, if your grant doesn't specifically say it has to be staff time, I would prefer mine does, so that I know that at the end of every year, we're about as risk adverse or risk-free funding as we can get, and I'm pretty risk averse. So anyway,
Thank
that
you,
was
Matt.
it. I just wanted to clarify that was all me.
So
Mayor,
do we have any further questions? Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, ma'am. So because you want to direct this 28,000 to salary, is the deliveries and services going to be the same?
As far as, will they still be delivering I think they're still using a mix of volunteers and paid staff. We had been paying nutritionists with CARES Act funding. We had been paying, I think they've almost fully expended those funds. In fact, I think they probably fully expended, they just haven't drawn it yet. But they were paying nutritionists to take the place of the volunteers that were no longer available to them to deliver the food. As far as I know, I think on our last conversation, they're still utilizing a considerable number of paid staff that St. Alphonsus is paying. So it's been I guess you would say, a cost increase to them for their response to COVID, to continue to meet those needs. But I don't believe just paying for staff time doesn't change their program in any way. It just shifts money around that now I freed up general funds of theirs to now go pay for food. We're just shifting money around really in their budget, but their program remains the same as far as I know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions from council for any applicants, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council, what would you like to do?
Mayor, I'll make the motion. Let's allocate the $114,879 and wait to be 52 cents in CDBG public funding as recommended by our staff. And thank you for all those who are doing this.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jangula.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you all for being here this evening. It's wonderful to see so many smiling faces that I don't get to see very often. Thank you for what you guys do. Christy, thank you. Krista, I should say, thank you for your work too. And Matt.
Sherry, good to see you too.
Yeah.
St. Al's, by the way. There we go.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6.2 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is for a variance of, I believe it is ordinance NCC 10-1-8D1 to allow a 6-foot fence to extend into the front yard area on an eastern portion of a parcel at 7714 East Willard Drive to permit a personal trailer and RV storage. This is for Danny Haydorn. And so is the applicant with us this evening? Good evening. Go ahead and come forward. And so the process will be you getting to introduce your project. Please share your name and address, and then we'll have a staff report, public testimony, and then we'll have you come back again. So good evening.
Good evening. I'm Danny Haydorn, and we live at, and it's my wife, Katie. We live at 7714 East Willard Drive, and
I think we're going to have you move your mic up because you're tall, but so go ahead and just pull that thing up. It'll bend. So there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
didn't I just say it, though?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, I can't tell where the picture is on there, but is there another picture that changes?
It's okay. We can just explain it without it. It's all right. I think he wants to the shape of the property. Is that what you're?
Does that picture reflect what you'd like us to look at as you share?
It does.
Go ahead and tell us what you're hoping to accomplish. We shared it a little bit in the action item, but go
Oh,
ahead and
the
tell
red
us
mark
about it.
is where the fence is now, and the gate is the small part. There you go. But the problem is our property is very oddly shaped, and the back part of it comes forward. And so the blue part is our RV access where we extended it, and the red part, I guess, is the front of the house at the bottom. So the blue part comes down, and then there's new gates out there, and then the other little triangle in front is still grass. So we just made our fence parallel with what the back fence was. And we were told, we got permission from the HOA for it and the CC&R. When we bought the place, they said, yeah, you could do whatever with this. And of course, you know, that's like a car salesman selling you whatever, just so you can hear what you want. But yeah, so we didn't have any clue about the $8 fence permit when we got the permission from the HOA to do it. And they said that would be fine. It's not something that's grotesque to look at or anything. So we went ahead and did it, and then we found out that I needed a permit, and that's incurred a lot more cost now because of the $8 permit. But we just, apparently the whole thing is that it's not supposed to come past the house by a certain amount of feet, and that's what was reported on us. And it's very far away from the house, so I don't know.
I see you've got a dilemma, huh?
I do.
Yes.
And I
it
have
sounds-
trailers that are supposed to be back there.
You have what?
Trailers that are back there right now.
And a fence that's already constructed?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I'm Katie Haydorn, and oh, I forgot what I was just going to say. I'm not used to talking into a microphone. As soon as I hear my voice, my mind goes blank.
I as well made it safer because there is no street lights or anything over there, so it's all dark. So I have a bunch of solar lights pointing at the sidewalk around there.
So I just want to say, we're first-time home buyers. We didn't know. We thought HOA approval and the CC&Rs were probably approved by the city, right? Like I may imagine they have to comply with some of the restrictions that you guys have. So we apologize for not doing this in advance before we built it, but we're still learning.
Thank you so much for sharing. I feel for you in your dilemma. Yeah, the HOAs don't necessarily know, but you would think, right, if you're being told, I can understand where you were. So I think what we're going to do, if you don't have anything else right now to share, we will have staff come up and they will share from the staff perspective. Then we will open it up for public hearing, and then we're going to have you, if you hear things that you question or want to comment on, please take a note. And then we're going to have you come back last. And so after you've listened, you can come back and say, you know what, yes, we agree, or no, or help me better understand, or whatever. You can come back and actually finish up, and you may be able to, have some different ideas of what you'd like to share after you hear the other piece of it. Does that sound good?
Thank
Okay,
you.
unless council, do you have any questions for them?
Yeah, so the red line's the fence.
The red line is the property boundary. It's what was approved. Their blue line, was the blue line the fence?
Yeah, the blue line is what
Oh, I also want to point out that the red line is not approved by the HOA, so we cannot do that.
Okay.
The blue is approved, but if we did the red line from our house to the corner, the HOA CCNRs say no. So that's an added addition to the dilemma. Okay, that's it.
Okay. And we'll have staff maybe further explain these lines when you come up. Okay. Thank you. We'll have you guys back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. And I'm used to speaking into a mic. My mind still goes blink sometimes. So, as you can see, this is for a variance. I just want to give you a context of where it is. It's between Ustick and Cherry and east of North Franklin Boulevard. And as has been stated, the variance is necessary because of the code requiring a 6-foot fence cannot go in front of the home, any of the front corners of the home. That's the front yard setback. Okay. There we go. So staff actually recommends approval. I don't do that often for variances, but I actually do on this one. I'm just going to go quickly through these criteria. Staff finds that the shape and position of the property near a corner likely constitutes a hardship to utilize the property for its intended use. Staff finds that the zoning ordinance objectives are not intended to prevent the use of the property for storage or recreational vehicles. And then second criteria there, the shape and position of the property appear to qualify as an extraordinary site characteristic. Next one, properties in the area and within the RS7 zone appear to allow personal storage of recreational vehicles on the property. The shape of the property appears to prevent this specific property from having that ability. So staff finds that this conclusion applies. And number 4, staff finds that the variance, if approved, does not grant a special privilege, but because of site circumstances is necessary to correct the code from causing an unfair disadvantage for this property due to its shape and position. So this is where it gets a little more challenging, although we're still recommending approval. While generally staff finds that this conclusion applies, and maybe I should just read through that, granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or materially injurious to properties of improvements in the area. So generally that applies, but staff suggests a potential safety concern for children and others walking on the sidewalk that would not be seen by a driver exiting the that corridor that's fenced off. So if there's a 4-foot child walking down the sidewalk and the fence goes, a 6-foot fence goes all the way up to the sidewalk, and a vehicle is exiting, and the first moment they're able to see what is on the sidewalk is when their vision crosses that sidewalk. Their vehicle's already crossed. So my concern was if there's a kid driving their bike or something and they can't see that kid driving the bike on the sidewalk, that's a potential safety concern for me. So I just, again, the blue is where their fence is. According to our city code, the red is where it could go, where the fence could go, a 6-foot fence. You could have a 3-foot fence out in that blue area, no problem. But it's required to get a variance because our code does not allow that. Hopefully that's clear. The blue line is what's currently what they built. The red line is where we would allow that by city code. So, and you can get a little bit of a sense here. So right where it says East Willard Drive, and there's that truck parked along the road there, if somebody was on the sidewalk at that point and the 6-foot fence came all the way out to the sidewalk, my concern is just that if you're pulling out of that rectangle area and you can't see the kid, that's my concern. So staff is going to recommend just a small change to the approval and see how you feel about that. Under city code, they not only have to follow the conclusions of law for a regular variance, but this also applies for fences in a front yard. So they have to provide adequate vision clearance for vehicles, both those passing on the street and those leaving the development site. That is the area I'm concerned about, number one right there. Include landscaping. It's already landscaped. Number 3, provide a front yard at least 1/2. It's got to have most of the front yard there still, and that's met. And finally, then not be detrimental to public health, similar to the variance conclusions of law. Again, I just raised the question about that number 5 that I mentioned. So just quickly, comp plan, medium density, zoning, RS7 all the way around it. Public utilities and services already there. There's the shape of the property. That's what we're talking about there that's challenging. Applicable regulations, these are all in your staff report. Happy to go over them, but essentially you just can't provide a special exception for somebody. There has to be specific conditions of this property that make it unique from other properties in the same zone. Again, some more of those same things. A limited variance, you might wonder why we're having this before you. It's because limited variances granted by the staff are only for those side and rear yard setbacks. For the front yard setbacks, it would still require that you see these. And limited comments, we got building just their standard response, but also we had one comment that was forwarded on to you from the clerk's office, and that's up on your screen. You've seen this, but essentially they're concerned about the amount of RVs and equipment and vehicles back there that have blocked their view of the sky, they said, in their backyard. So staff analysis, just the one public comment that there was a concern about, and then appears to meet conclusions of law and other requirements with the condition that I'm going to recommend right now. And that's number 1, the new 6-foot fence shall not be constructed within 10 feet of the back of sidewalk to allow some vision clearance for pedestrians on the sidewalk. This is minimal. It's half the distance that we typically get for a front yard setback. So that's just something for you to consider, just enough for a driver to see somebody walking down the sidewalk. And applicant shall obtain a fence permit before this is granted. So those are all my recommended conditions, and on the screen is recommended approval or denial.
Excuse me, could you go back and show us a picture of what your recommendation would be compared to what they have built?
You bet. Right here. So essentially, I believe, I don't know the exact measurement, but I believe I'm almost positive that the setback for the house is 20 feet, which is typical of these kinds of developments. So you can see where their driveway, Christy, can you use the mouse and kind of point where the driveway is? That's what I was just going to say. So that dash line goes across, and where that blue line meets the dash line is where I would propose that we consider bringing that fence back to.
So Mayor, and I think I know, but Rodney, clarification in that dotted line there, then what we would be asking the applicant to do is to tear down several feet of fence and run that then where that dash line is. You know approximately how many feet of fence that is?
Looks to be about maybe 15 or so on the sidewalk side, and then they would just move their gate and the rest of their fence up. Yep, thank you, Chrissy.
And Mayor, I realize HOA and city or code are two different things. So, but our HOAs, how are we educating HOAs that they follow the city codes? I realize that's a challenge.
Yeah, we've over the years, we've tried to come up with a list of HOAs, and the state keeps some lists of those who register and update their information, and we've tried to produce that in the past and get information out, but it changes so frequently, their contact information. It'll be an HOA president one year, and then they'll move. And so it's really challenging.
Yeah, unless it's a large HOA, which a lot of your large HOAs contract with folks who do this for their living.
Right.
So unless that happens, that's where the challenge is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say that we have had discussions about the HOAs, and I think it's going to be a priority with the city. It's going to take some staff time, which is difficult, but within the drought issue that we're dealing with, we've talked about the need to really know our HOAs, and I think it's going to need to be, especially in situations like this, an extra area of focus. Very unfortunate when they're given them. Right.
Thanks.
Mayor, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Rodney, I'm having such a hard time visualizing this. Can we Google Earth walk us all down this street so we can look at it from a street view?
We could try that, yeah.
Is that?
Well, just to see it from like, if his concern is.
Oh, that's right. This is new enough that I could not find an aerial or a street view on it. So this was the best I could come up with.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious because like seeing it, I mean, I can see it this way, but where your concern is if somebody's walking down the street and a kid, like just to be kind of at that level to see what that would, that blockage would look like would be helpful.
Yeah.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Rodney, I was going through the report and flying right along through your staff recommendations on practical hardships and all of the things that were listed 1 through 4. Then when we got to number 5, I was hung up on that same item. But it's funny that my proposed change, I was just showing Jacob, was the same thing that you just described. So I'm all in favor of just having them move the gate back 10 feet off that corner, and that allows the kids to, the visibility. I don't want the liability as a city councilman of saying that someone's going to not get potentially hurt when they could. So that was the same suggestion I was going to make.
Okay, so we are ready to step into the public hearing. And so unless there are no further questions at this time, we'll go ahead and step into the public hearing. And I do believe we do have someone signed up to testify.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have Linda Cummins, and she is going to be testifying on Teams, and she is opposed.
Good evening. I first would like to extend my congratulations to Sandy in her marriage, and also my deep appreciation for this council and for their service that they have provided in order to hear my voice. I'd like to say that I'm a peacemaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to say that, I'm a person of peace, not a troublemaker. I think we should all get along with our neighbors and extend a helping hand to all. Respect is very important in my book. And I did have concerns. Expanding the fence, was it really approved by the HOA? And what do the CC&Rs really say? That was one of mine. And then if this was done, then are the other homeowners going to be able to do it also? Because it isn't fair to say it's okay for one, but it's not fair to say no to others. Also, what does this do for our property values? With the fencing that has 2 different colors and is odd shaped and kind of weird, But I was puzzled also as to why he was allowed to store trailers, RVs, and whatever, and not have to use an off-site storage like everybody else does on the blocks or in the subdivisions. I don't know. That's my thought there. If this is approved, then how many more trailers or RVs or whatever is he going to be able to store behind that fence? And then I don't know. I mean, could he use them for rent? That's kind of, would he be able to collect income off of those? And I was wondering if there was going to be any unannounced checks to ensure that people aren't living in them and what the conditions are. So I know he works from home, and I can understand that. There's a lot of cars on our street. My street is curved. And so as you come up to that curve, you can't tell what's coming off of Juilliard around to Willard. It's only like one car available to get through. So sometimes we've been surprised as we go around the corner and the car coming at us from the other street. So it is dangerous. It's for a safety thing. So, and then also if neighbors want to sell, who's going to really want to buy property across from a storage unit? Are they going to say, oh, okay, this is storage, so I don't think I really want to buy or something like that. So is it going to bring our property values down again? So I know that most of the people in our HOA and subdivisions, as you go through them even, show pride in their homes. And I know these people want to too, but these are some of my very serious concerns.
Linda, thank you for testifying this evening.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Uh-huh. Is there anyone else signed up this evening?
No, there is not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone here or anyone else online that had intended to testify this evening? Okay, seeing none. This would be an opportunity for the applicant to come back. I would like for there to be some clarity based on the questions that Mrs. Cummins brought forward. I have a question about code, the difference between code and the HOA guidelines, because she asked a couple of questions about that could be code issues. And so it might be helpful for us to clarify what is actual code versus what is an HOA guideline.
Mayor and Council, great question. So HOA and CCNRs are a private agreement between the HOA and those who buy the property. We've been counseled by our attorneys in the past to kind of steer clear of managing HOA conditions at all. And so we try to encourage you to make decisions just based on city code. Whether they approve it or not is a different matter altogether. And so I would just encourage that to continue.
Thank you. So there was a concern over people living in their RVs, and I think that is a code issue. And
That is
so
a code issue.
Could we speak to that? Because I believe according to code, you're not allowed to do that.
That is correct. By city code, you can't live long-term in an RV. They're not designed for that, and we don't allow that. However, that being said, code compliance is limited on their ability to look in people's backyards to determine what's happening there. If there's a sewer connection or a electrical connection or something that's hardwired into the building and needs a permit, that's a different matter, and we would look at that issue. But if they're just parking their RVs and living in there, then there's not a lot that we can do to enforce that if it's behind a fence that code compliance is not permitted to go through and investigate in the backyard.
So I have a quick question, and this may be directed at legal, because what I'd like to ask is, do you have a copy of their HOA? But what I'm hearing is we don't want to get into the HOA side, right? I see that. So I just want to ensure that we would not approve something that would actually violate, to keep us out of any conflict with an HOA. I think the applicant has said that the HOA gave them permission. I don't have any idea. Assuming, and we'll have you come back up and share that, and thank you. So I think they've got that. which we don't have to have, and you're shaking your head saying we're not going to go into that, correct?
Madam Mayor, that's correct. It's just a can of worms you really can't control. An HOA also could have regulations one day, and then it's a private contract exactly as Rodney has described. The members, a month later, could change the terms of their HOA CC&Rs, never requiring city approval, changing their own rules. So there's just no way to realistically track it. They can impose more stringent requirements amongst the owners of the property that they're subject to, and the city doesn't have a role in that. But they can't lessen the city's existing requirements through their HOA CC&Rs. So it's really next to impossible to have any control over them.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Haverfield.
I just sent an email to Natalie, whether she'll see it or not.
Oh.
The fence layouts there.
Thank you.
Okay. So the only thing is, because not everyone's seeing it, it should be of
I wish I
public
could put it up on the screen.
record. So can you send that, whatever you sent, send it to Rodney, because he should show it to everyone.
So Mayor, clarification, I mean, if this is a code violation, that's a whole different issue. We're not addressing that tonight. We're just addressing the fence and the variance, correct?
Correct. And there's no indication that it is a code violation.
And so even, I would be, I'd like to ask the applicant, are there
And you
people?
can, because they're up next.
I'm talking about the other area. Are the people living in the, on their property? But that's not part of what we're addressing tonight, so I don't think I'm allowed to do that. So that would be my interest.
So while we're looking for the fence boundary, we'll go ahead and have the applicant come up and provide response to the discussion and the questions that you've heard this evening. Hi, kids. It's great that you're here tonight.
They're being very good.
They are. They are.
Great.
Well, we had no clue that Linda was
She's our
the
friend.
wrench in the, the wheel in the wrench or whatever.
But we hear what she's saying. We don't want to, discount anything that she's saying. And we did have the HOA approval. We have a very, very big front yard. I don't know if you guys can actually envision it, but aesthetically, it looks very similar to everybody else's. It doesn't look like it's going into the front yard. It looks like our backyard is just a little bit bigger than it actually was before. There are so many RVs up and down our neighborhood. That's one of the reasons we bought the place, is because everyone stores their RVs. There's one, her neighbor right next to her has an RV stored there. Our neighbors all have RVs stored there. And response to the blocking the sky view, her backyard backs up to our fence extension, just like our backyard backs up to our other neighbor's backyard, and there's an RV right there. So it's no different than any other property in terms of view or visibility of our RVs. So, and no one's living in our RVs.
It's our toy hauler to go camping in, and then the other one is a car hauler.
And then even if the
Mine.
fence is shortened, what would actually happen is we would move the RV closer to our home, lose backyard space where our children can safely play, rather than playing in the front yard and having that giant field that is basically useless for us. So we are trying to get more space in our yard for our children to be able to play. That was the purpose of the fence. We will still be able to park our RVs there if the fence is removed. But we wanted to use more of our land that we paid more money for.
Thank you. Okay.
Good job.
Not a very straight line, but I tried.
Okay, so this is the picture that Randy created.
This is what Rodney was talking about.
Yes, thank you. So this is what it would look like if the fence were moved back 10 feet.
And Madam Mayor, they've requested that it go back to where the current fence is right here. So I don't know if that is a discussion, but they would definitely have the ability to go within that setback if this was your will to do it.
Could you say that again? Rodney,
So-
explain.
So the blue line is where they're proposing to have that fence line go to. If you limited it to the 10 feet or back off the sidewalk, then it could just, according to what they've requested and their CCNRs have said they could do, they would go to that point instead of across this line right here.
Well, that point, how it doesn't have a line going?
Right here?
Yeah, okay, well, that's where everybody's is because the HOA does say it has to be 5 feet back from the house.
From the corner of the house.
Yeah.
However, our thing's like 27 feet back or something, and your law is like 20 feet or something
Yeah.
like that. So, but the HOA says it's gotta be at that line where every house has it go back just a little bit from the house. So that's why it goes that way, and then that way, those two little lines right there, I made that into just like a pedestrian gate, so I can walk through there with a gate like what would be on the other side of the house.
So essentially, this line right here would be green back here instead.
That would be up to the front of the house, yeah.
Yeah.
But it can't be there. It's gotta be back where it is there, so, it is just a difficult shape.
So Mayor, off the subject, the lady who testified, and I don't know, there again, legal, you tell me, but she was concerned also as far as the appearance of the fence. Is that something that could be discussed, or are we just talking about the positioning of the fence and not what the fence looks like? I'm asking legal on this one.
So the appearance of the fence is just driven by code, what code requires, what type of fence can be placed there.
So have we looked at the fence?
Yeah, it's building material, so that's approved by our code. It's typical fence building
Oh,
material.
okay, so it's following code.
Correct.
I just from the testimony, I was hearing different. So maybe it was something funny about it. I think her words were, it's funny.
So this would be the time the applicant could provide response.
The
Regarding-
color that she was talking about is because I already had the fence painted, and then I added on to it, and I rearranged it a little bit, but then this came about. So I'm not gonna sit there and paint the whole fence.
Oh, there's a
Finish it
stain, there's one piece of a stain that doesn't match the rest of the fence, but as soon as we got the notice that we might have to tear it all down.
No use, yeah.
We're like, well, we're not gonna pay to stain it and make it all.
It's got
but
stained
it's just a light-
parts and then new fence part. So that's what she's complaining about. Not that she should, because she's got like an abandoned vehicle in front of her house all the time.
Okay,
And
no.
her boyfriend's some 70-year-old guy that drives a weird Model T.
Stop. Okay, back up.
That vehicle does run, and it sits in my driveway.
Okay, so at this point, are there any other questions for the applicant? And do you have anything else that you have wanted to say that you did not get to say at the conclusion of testimony?
No, thank you all very much for
Okay.
hearing us. We appreciate it immensely.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what is the will? Council, would you like to discuss how you would like to move forward on this?
I think our president probably has a.
I'm trying to fix my drawing, but it's not working. Sure.
Yes, you may.
I just, in the future, if we could get like a picture, just like even like go there and just have some sort of picture, because even in my mind,
So, yeah, thank you.
We already closed it.
I just feel for
So-
them. They get HOA approved and they build the fence and then who knows the exact codes, I mean.
But they're asking us to approve it, and we can't from a liability standpoint.
Yep.
Personally. Just don't think we can.
That's why I'd like to see the picture, like how bad is it? Is it, some of these situations we've seen where it is dangerous, or with the picture, it might not.
So staff recommendation was at this point, and we could go back to staff recommendation, I believe. In fact, would you like to go back to that slide so that we could see?
No, I've seen it, and I'm gonna trust Randy on this one to make a motion, but in the future, if we could get a picture, that'd be.
I agree. That would be very helpful, and we'll have staff provide a picture in the future, because that would be very helpful. So, okay. Would it be too late for us to actually see a picture?
Madam Mayor, you'd have to make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Reopen public hearing?
Grant that.
I mean, we already been down it, so.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're fair, if it would make a difference in a motion and an approval. Okay.
Mayor, just clarification from our councilman, are you concerned whether they actually should have to tear and replace the fence? Is that what the safety concern, is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
And so I guess, Mayor, and I don't want to prolong this, but it would be, but is there a photograph that we could, if we do make a motion to re-enter public hearing, that we actually have a photograph to see or not?
And she has a photograph, if you would like me.
Okay, would it help, in your mind, Rodney, would it help as far as in our decision-making, as far as the safety aspect?
From my quick glance at it, it appears like it's looking at the property facing it. If you're wanting a picture of somebody walking down a sidewalk and where that fence would come up to that sidewalk, I don't think that that's going to show it.
Yeah, I would suggest we don't move that direction, Mayor. That's just my personal opinion.
So I think what I heard, I just want to go back and recap what the staff recommendation was. So could you go back to that slide? Because I think what's
You mean
important.
the conditions?
You're at the beginning, you went through the staff, you had a recommendation, and you had some findings of why you were making the recommendation that you had. And so I was just thinking, and your recommendation was to push the fence back 10 feet to where you could create the sightline. Was that correct? Was that your recommendation?
Yeah, I'll just go to the proposed motion. You can see here, with all conditions of staff and the proposed findings in the staff report, and the proposed recommended condition is that the new 6-foot fence shall not be constructed within 10 feet of the back of sidewalk to allow some vision clearance for pedestrians on the sidewalk. So just that space, 10 feet, no fence, I should say.
Thank you. Okay. Councilman Haverfield, or?
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion as presented to us this evening with the conditions of approval to include the new 6-foot fence shall not be constructed within 10 feet of the back of the sidewalk. And the reason for that is the concern of safety for people walking on the sidewalk. So they can take the fence and just move it back, the gate and everything, just 10 feet, and they should be fine. So I'm okay.
Second.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I was doing, is to approve the variance request with the recommended conditions of approval by staff as identified, especially with the 6-foot fence being moved back 10 feet off the side of the sidewalk. Is that okay?
I'll second it again.
It's been moved and seconded. So is there any discussion?
I just have one question, Mayor. Yes. So just from a legal standpoint, let's say that we did approve it and somebody got injured from the visibility, what liability does the city have with that? Does that fall on us at all, or
No.
it's just good faith of knowing that we allowed something?
Yeah, so you've had a pretty robust discussion about safety and amended the request to ensure you preserved safety and tried to protect that concern. So I don't think the city has any liability. The individual causing the crash would.
And just to clarify, I believe our standard city code would require it being set back 20 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, it may be even more than that if the house was farther back. So it's not within that front yard setback or front yard at all. So essentially, You draw a line from the corner of the front of your home, and that's where it could go to.
Thank you. I just say that because I think it reflects, hopefully, to you as homeowners, that there is a compromise on this, and we understand the hardship based on the things that have been shared, that there is a hardship, but also looking out for the safety, which is the responsibility of the city council and where we are. So, any further comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Kids were really good tonight. Thank you guys for being here this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to item 6.3 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is a reconsideration of a zoning map amendment to RS6, from the RS6 PUD to a two-family duplex residential zoning district. It includes a development agreement modification to rescind and replace the existing agreement, which is ordinance 3610, and the subdivision preliminary plat for Middlebury North subdivision at 0 Midway Road, totaling 121.9 acres. This is for Jane Suggs, Jim State Planning, representing Endurance Holdings. Jane, welcome.
Set up, I'm not quite that tall. Ooh. And will you run the PowerPoint for me, or shall I get the? I can do that. I got a few slides. There you go. Good evening, council and mayor, excuse me, staff and guests that are still here. I'm Jane Suggs with Jim State Planning, 9839 Cable Car Street in Boise, and I'm representing Middlebury North subdivision and Trilogy. I also have volunteered for Meals on Wheels, but I did not graduate from NNU.
Do you have a master's yet? No.
No, well, that's true, I don't. So I just want to start off with a big thank you very much for reconsidering the decision that was made back in February. I do appreciate your time to let me come up here and talk about that project again. And from that last hearing, I remember many of you really enjoyed the project, thought it was a nice looking project. We did run into a few issues, and I'd like to kind of see how show you how we've addressed those. And the other thing I'd like to do is, and I know this might be a little out of your process, but as you go through your deliberations, if we could keep the public hearing open in some way that I might be able to respond and make changes if you see concerns. Because if we go through this and I haven't done enough, then I would be happy to have a conversation with you so that we can address other concerns. So here are a couple of slides that we had in February. This was just showing where this project is in relation to your comprehensive plan of medium density. You'll see that Middlebury North, Middlebury South, you approved last year. And I believe the Enclave subdivision, which is a mixed-use project just north of us, is going through the city of Caldwell right now. So, and we're fortunate that they actually show connectivity to us. So an opportunity with Middlebury North to actually have a collector going north to Karcher Road. Here's a picture of the old plat. And you'll remember that the pink lots were duplex lots, the orangish lots were fourplex lots. And down at the bottom, you'll see some smaller lots. Those are the townhome lots. Most of our discussion centered around this quadrant of the project. Again, kind of the fourplex duplex area. And as you know, based on our reconsideration letter and the staff report, we've made a few changes to that plat. And I'm going to focus in again on that quadrant. Oh, too fast. There. Oh, okay. I thought I had another plat of just the quadrant. Let's go to that next slide then. So here's the old plat, and that's the one that we talked about last February. It had 45 duplex lots and 22 townhomes. Those townhomes are on the south side of what will be Cirrus. Our new proposed plat actually has replaced 24 of those duplexes with 2-unit townhomes. So they've moved from being a rental property to a for-sale property. We also note that in the center, on the right side, you'll see in the center of that green space, there's a parking lot with 12 additional parking spaces, and there could be more if you feel like we need to have more. Again, at that meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the mix of dwelling units between for sale and for rent. At the time in February, we had a mix of dwelling units that was getting close to what you wanted. It was 31% rental and 69% for sale. This is for both Middlebury and Middlebury South kind of connected together because they do form one large community. Oh, here we go. Now put those not in order. Now we have adjusted. We've got 24 of the duplex units were turned into 48 townhomes. So these are 48 townhomes for sale. And that makes the rental numbers right at 25% of the total project. So we've actually reduced the amount of rental and increased the amount of for sale product to 75%. Here is a picture of what that looks like. We had these duplexes on 80-foot wide lots. Now we have a property boundary through the middle. So we have 2 townhomes sharing a wall, and then with 5-foot side yard setbacks, which is just like a single-family home. Here's an example of a duplex, or actually a townhome now. Here's a rendering of a townhome. Now, we still have a few duplexes, and many of them will look just like this, but they will be rental products, and these will be for sale products. One of the things I want to note is, after talking to the owner of the property and the developer, that there will be an on-site management company that will handle all the rental units as far as leasing and management. And they've also decided that they want a professional maintenance company to actually maintain not just the common spaces, but all the rental properties will be maintained. Exteriors of all the rentals will be maintained in common. So there'll be a professional maintenance company that will be a part for the rental properties. I know that was a concern about the idea that rentals maybe don't always take care. So for this reason, there will be a professional management company and maintenance company. As you remember, we've added the 12 parking spaces. So, here's a picture of another project in Meridian where we had a 2-story duplex and or townhome. These can be built either way. Kind of a streetscape with that. Okay, so here is that revised plat. You can see, if you can look kind of closely, don't know if you can see it on this one. Let's see if I have another one. There we go. For those fourplexes, each fourplex has 9 parking spaces in front of it. So that gives you the 2 parking spaces per unit plus 1 additional for every building, which is part of your code. And we will commit to whatever part of your code you're changing, which I think you are in the process of making those changes, maybe even tonight. We will commit, and as a condition of approval, if necessary, to make sure that we meet your proposed parking code for multifamily. We think it's important. It's very important for our leasing as well. I mean, we've run into struggles. I think I described it in other jurisdictions that are trying to minimize parking. And we're running into problems because we don't find that those are as leasable as those that when you come home from work, you know there's a parking space for you. And I understand that at least 1 parking space per unit will be covered. So we commit to that too as a condition of approval. I think traffic came up at some point, and of course, one of the big traffic issues was ITD and Karcher Road. I did talk to a representative of Karcher, the ITD Karcher Road improvements last week. The construction of the improvements from Middleton to Farmway will begin in 2023. We're pretty excited about that. They're finishing up their designs and will be completed in 2025. So that works out really well with this. We're not going to be waiting until the 2030 something to find out that Karcher Road as a highway will be improved. And while we're on the subject of traffic, you might look in your packet, and I know it's difficult because I don't know the page numbers exactly. I think it was page 265 in your packet or page 8 in your staff report. It starts the list of all the transportation improvements that we're doing. The north-south collector, I might have to go back to another drawing that shows you in the single-family portion, we have a collector street that goes north and will connect to the enclave that takes you to Karcher. We have the street that goes all the way from Midway over across the Embankment Canal, and that will take you over to the Lakeview School. And that's a mid-mile collector as well. We're building all of those. We're doing improvements on Midway. We're doing some intersection improvements, a roundabout at Cirrus and Midway. So there's a whole list of those. Just as an added reminder, we are building, we're extending the Midway sewer trunk line. We're also extending water mains through the property, and we're building a regional pressure irrigation station. So there's a lot of infrastructure that goes along with this project. So I think it's a real benefit to the city. And finally, there's that elephant in the room, which is Valley View Schools. Since our last meeting, the owner of the property, Corey Barton, has met with Valley View Schools and actually has another meeting coming up Thursday. We were disappointed that the bond didn't pass, but they're going forward with another bond soon, and we'll continue to do that. Also, the developer, Sean Brownlee with Trilogy, and I both have met with the Valley View Schools as well. They really want some dedication of properties or someplace in their district. Just one thing to keep in mind, that doesn't necessarily mean that this school will be changed. It would mean that the attendance boundaries may change as new schools are built. And I also want to remind you that this property is already annexed in 2006 for several hundred homes. So Valley View Schools has kind of known that this would be developed with several hundred homes right next to Lakeview Elementary School. So we hope that you'll take that in consideration before you deny us because of the school district. They have been aware, and the developer and the owner of the property, Corey, are talking to the Valley View Schools about what he can do to help them, because all the schools are overcrowded. And a lot of the developers have a lot of land that they may be able to do something to help them. Before I close, just some renderings of what this nice detached sidewalk looks like, tree-lined streets. Again, you'll recall that we're doing all the pathways along the Wilson Drain, the Embankment Canal. We have 7/10 of a mile of additional pathways throughout the property, and that doesn't include the sidewalks, both sides of the street detached. So a lot of pathways, our most used amenity. And a few pictures of some renderings of some homes that were selected and rendered especially for Middlebury. And these are just a few. Of course, there'll be many, many others. Again, I appreciate that you're willing to let me come back and talk about these changes where we've added some for sale properties, which I think was the bigger issue and a big discussion we had. Want to talk to you about if you don't think that's enough, let's talk about that. But I think this is a really good mix. I think there still is a real need for rental properties in Nampa, and this is a great location, being so close to Karcher Road. And I respectfully request your approval of our rezone from R6 PUD to standard R6, so already annexed, and our subdivision as conditioned and with any other additional conditions you'd like to discuss with me, and I'll stand for questions.
Jane, thank you very much. Yes, Councilman Brunner.
You knew I was going to have something. Thanks, Jane. You do such a great job, and let me just say, I'll probably get myself in trouble right off the bat, but this is a great project. Just the reality, and I know it's not to influence our decision, but that elephant you were talking about is a real concern of mine, and that's school. So let me just ask you a few questions. And I'm not saying that these are the solutions, but any remedies. Is there any area in your development at all that's 55 plus?
We had not planned to do that.
Is
no.
there any consideration that you would be willing to consider that? I'm looking at legal, so you're starting to give me an eye. So,
Okay, so I guess I want to fully go down that rabbit hole.
so if I can't discuss it any further, that's fine.
Okay.
The reality is I'm a kid guy, and I think everyone on this council is a kid guy.
Yes.
So as a developer and so on, I don't think there's any law that any person who is selling houses or renting has to tell the parents, hey, Valley View School District is full. I do know that Lakeview has 3 auxiliary buildings currently, so that's a good indication from an eye that hopefully a parent would realize there's not room for their kids unless they want to have a teacher-to-student ratio that's out of this world.
So, Madam Mayor, I'll jump in there real quick.
You can let me have it.
Well, I understand the questions and concerns, but for this type of application, that particular concern isn't squarely before council. A school capacity issue is not one that's part of this rezone request.
Right.
Land's already entitled to have residential units. So it's
help
not
me from a
something-
human standpoint. How do you assure in the city of Nampa that these kids are taken care of, even if the parents maybe are not as asking the correct questions, or her person selling real estate is informing parents of decisions? How do we take care of our kids?
So the legal answer would be, you got to stay within the confines of the application that's in front of you.
Okay.
The broader
I
answer.
understand that, but that doesn't help me with kids, and I understand, but that, to me, that's not the right answer. It's a legal right answer, but it's not the right answer for me if we want to watch out for the future of Nampa and our future generations.
So, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
for the purpose of reviewing and deciding an application, we got to stay within the bounds of
Okay.
what you're allowed to consider.
But I don't want to turn this great project down, and if we can't discuss it any further, but I'm just trying to find out if there's some remedies to help me feel better. And in this project that has been so much time spent on it and doing a super job in presenting it, and also the development of making it happen, so.
Could we possibly actually hear the staff presentation?
Yeah.
Because I do have a question from the staff presentation. I think, Rodney, you can provide, or Christie, some clarity that there is already approved housing at this property. And so what we're voting on tonight is really how it's laid out, and it's just a change to what is there. But I want the clarity of that, and we do need to make sure that we're voting within the bounds. And Jane, you always do such great presentations. Thank you so much.
Mayor, if I may, though, then I'll get out of trouble maybe here a little bit. So I'm also, as far as how many, can I ask legally, how many more parking places that they would consider? And let me just make a comment to that. I've driven through several in the last, in fact, Sunday morning I drove through. And so we had, not one of your projects, single houses. Then we had duplexes and fourplexes across the street. On Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, there were cars lined up all down. So these single families are looking across their front of their houses at all these cars lined up. So I'm totally in favor. So how many more extra parking places have you discussed with the developer or considered?
Well, we have in the centrally located open space, which is very convenient to a lot of the fourplexes, we've put in 12. It'd be very easy just to put 12
do
on the other
more?
side and do 24
Okay.
additional spaces. And I think that would be a really good opportunity to make sure that that happens. Again, we do have public streets, and I know you don't want them parking on public streets, but in that rare instance that somebody is pulling up in front, running in and coming out, there is parking on the public streets. But 12 more in that same location. So we have a total of 24. We're already at 2 units for all bedrooms and plus 1 extra for every building.
Thank you very much. Okay. So one thing I think I want to mention, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Legal or Rodney, I think our intent is to save discussion until after the public hearing and to discuss before we make a motion. And in order to keep the process clean, I think that's what we've been encouraged to do. Am I correct on that?
That's correct, Mayor.
So I think we need to, so I'm going to ask Councilman Bruner, yes, and us all to go ahead, because I even actually have comments that are positive that I would like to share, but it isn't the time. And so let's go ahead and go through and allow Christy to do the presentation, then we'll step into the public hearing, and then we'll get to talk.
Okay, thank you. Mayor,
Thank
council
you.
members. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. Jane covered a lot of this, and so rather than wasting your time this evening, this is a reconsideration, so most of your conversation should probably be with her, but I will try to answer some questions for you. So just real quick, this is the project to the north that is at City Council in Caldwell right at this moment. Just for your reference, this project, Middlebury as a whole, with both the north and the south, comes in at 3.5 units per gross acre. This project that is going through Caldwell at the moment is 6.6. So as far as compatibility is concerned, this one is more dense, so the compatibility issue is, it's there, it lines up. The boundary properties on this one are 4plexes and 6plexes, which will be exactly adjacent to the 4plexes that are being proposed in Middlebury North. Just real quickly, the conclusions of law for a rezone. Staff finds that the proposed RD meets the medium density designation in the future land use map. Staff finds that the request for the mix of single-family residential duplexes, 4plexes, and townhouses is compatible with already existing development in the area. That includes Brownstone that was approved by Nampa a few years back. Staff finds that the proposed RD zoning district is compatible with the other existing uses in the area as the previous conclusion of law. Staff finds that the proposed RD zoning would not create a spot zone. And we find that the proposed residential development does contribute to the character in this area, as the Caldwell project is proposing similar. Brownstone has 4plexes on its frontage on Karcher as well. So these are just the standard surrounding zoning. There's utilities available. If you want me to go through the extensive transportation improvements that they're going to be required to make, this particular one identifies projects triggered that will be mitigated and addressed by the development. That's the list of things that they're going to have to do. This list is the list of what they're going to have to dedicate on their frontage, traffic calming devices, various different roadway improvements, and the alignment of Cirrus Drive that will then relieve a lot of pressure off of Karcher because it will bring in that mid-mile collector. So these are your applicable regulations. The correspondent hasn't changed. It's the same as before. And then the DA mod. So of course, this is a development agreement already, was approved in 2006. They do have a project that they could design it with the 294 original acres. 641 dwelling units comes in at 2.18 dwelling units per acre. Again, like I said, with these two combined together, the density is 3.53. So it's 1.4 dwelling units per acre higher, but it does match the surrounding developments. So I will stand for any questions.
I just want to make sure I have my math right. So we have a total of, I saw it here a second ago, 468 dwelling units. If this stayed RS6, how many dwelling units would that be? I'm just wondering the differences of if we approve it or not.
A lot, Councilman Bauer, a lot goes into that calculation, and I
Right.
can't do it right off the top of my head,
Right.
sorry.
Good
The RD,
explanation.
so in a medium density designation, you have a range of density. You can do anywhere between 2.5 units to 8 in a medium density designation. The RD zoning fits within that designation, so they could potentially go up to 8 in an RD zone. So an RS6 could potentially be 4.5,
And this one is 3.5.
and this is 3.5 total.
So
They
they-
have a significant amount of open space.
So it could be more
Mm-hmm.
without this approval.
Well, not without this approval. So they have an RS6 PUD for 641 dwelling units. That they could come with a preliminary plat with 641 dwelling units if they're not approved this evening for this project.
Councilman Haverfield?
So 2 questions. Has there been a preliminary plat for the approved subdivision, the approved PUD?
Councilman Haverfield, no, that was in 2006, and the preliminary plat was never submitted.
Okay. My only other question is, the 27% open space common area, does that include the paved surfaces, like roads and sidewalks? Or is that actual grass area? Okay, so the computation for the hard surfaces is not presented to us, but it's not included in the open space. That was my main question.
It shouldn't be. That's not how we've asked that question of the developers in the past on our application. We've asked them to separate out the common space from the right-of-way.
Right, and that's what I normally do, but I didn't see it here, so I wanted to make sure that that clarity was being provided. So 27% open space, we're asking for 15 on most of our developments.
That is
This far
correct.
exceeds that requirement.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Christy? Christy, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So this is a public hearing, and I will say that we do not have anyone signed up to testify in favor or in opposition to this. Is there anyone online? Do we have anyone online? Rodney, do we have anyone online at all? Okay, we do not. And is there anyone in the room that had intended to testify on this particular matter? Seeing no one, Jane, if you would like to come back and we can have a discussion, and I'll let you share any further thoughts and counsel any questions that you have for Jane.
Let me start off by saying thank you again for letting me come and reconsider this. We think this is an incredibly great project and brings great housing opportunities to this part of Nampa. It is a larger project, Middlebury North and the original Middlebury. It will take several years, 10 years to build out. So it's not like they're going to show up right away, and hopefully we can pass more than one bond by then for the school district. I wanted to respond to Mr. Haverfield's request on open space. That percentage is everything that's not buildable and not roads. So it is a large number, and it's because we have those big drains and the pathways beside the drains, because we have a portion of some land that was going into the 3-acre park that was established with Middlebury South. It's all of those open spaces. So, and the only thing that I have to say that is paved, that hasn't been taken out of that, is the parking lot we put in that open area. We had a big green open area, and now we're putting 24 parking spaces in that. So we did not subtract that. We didn't go to that detail of subtracting it, but it's still quite a bit more than your standard would require. Again, and I do want that condition that we're going to add 12 more parking spaces, because I want that to be reflected in the notes and the conditions. Again, I think we've done a really good job of taking out many of the duplexes that are rental properties and turning them into townhomes. And so we've changed that percentage quite a bit. I want to talk about Valley View, but I don't know how to talk about it, because no matter, we just need to get the bonds approved. And what happens is, when a bond is approved, or if people start moving in and they're very close to Valley View, the school district can change the attendance boundaries. So some of the kids going from west of Valley View, they'll end up maybe going to a different school. And one of the things I did not do, but I know that there are quite a few Christian schools, private schools, other schools that I have not calculated the numbers going there. And because we're right across the street from the school, the Christian school across the street, you may find families moving in just for that reason. And I believe that was one of the things that a neighbor had said, how are you going to get kids across the street? There will be some sort of opportunity for crossing there on Cirrus especially. When we get to that level, there'll be a roundabout, but I would bet there's going to be some sort of crossing opportunity there too. So, and that's something our highway guys will keep us honest on. So again, if you have some other questions or see some additions that you'd like to see, again, we think this is a great project for the city and really would appreciate your approval. I am committed to talk to you through so we can walk out of here with approval.
Thank you, Jane. Councilwoman Jangula.
Is it worth the master's in?
Is it worth what?
Masters at NNU?
Is it worth it?
You're gonna.
I think that's joking.
You're going to be in trouble also.
I'm signing up. I'm signing up. Just come here.
Mayor.
We have Councilwoman Jangula.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. So let's follow our process. Thank you.
Jane, you do such a great job presenting. I really appreciate your project.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you listening to us about the parking, because that's a concern, and I appreciate you doing that. So, but I am going to address the elephant, because that is a big concern of mine as well. So the bond didn't pass, as you stated. We have to wait a year until they can do it again.
We do not.
They're going to.
We were told that they were actually going, I'm sorry? Yeah, they're going sooner than that. And they'll go again and again until the legislature tells them they can't, but they will go as often as they can.
So
Could I pause you right there? I want to go back to legal. I believe that the school, we've already stated that the Valley View cannot be part of this decision. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, I mean, if
So I'm concerned about going back there because
the school discussion's broader than maybe this application for sure. But because it wouldn't be the basis for a decision, for or against, because this is entitled property that has the ability to put residences on it, even without this application, and put kids in schools without ever presenting today, it's really not necessarily a factor for or against with this application. The information's helpful, and informative, but if the discussion here in this hearing is to use it to determine whether we support or oppose a particular application, I think that's where the city gets into sticky.
Okay, then let me dance around this then, and you can stop me when needed. So, growth has to fund growth, and that's something that is lacking, and I don't think that bonds is the answer for that necessarily. I know that there are builders, so this could be part of us putting in a regulation or whatever to put this in our proposal, to be able to have the builder pay a certain dollar amount per home that would go towards the schools to help fund that growth. Can I say this?
So, Madam Mayor, I'll just cut in. That's like a school impact fee, which you don't have the authority to do.
But builders are doing it. Builders are doing it, and cities are approving under those conditions. It is happening. Anywhere between $500 and $2,000 a home.
So I would advise you to have a conversation separate from this about that issue. But for the city, I would strongly caution you against.
I think where we need to go, this is not a discussion the city council has had. And so I don't, and based on what legal's commenting, we cannot bring it into this discussion because that is not a stipulation that, and we don't have any ordinance, anything that we've discussed as a city. So we would not be able to bring it into the decision-making tonight. Is that fair to say? Okay.
I'm trying to help Jane out because I like Jane's project. I really do. This is a conundrum significant for me. And then at that point, then if we can't discuss that, then for me,
It cannot, and it cannot be a condition. So one thing if I could, I think it's very important to remember that this property is already conditioned for approval. It's already going to be developed. And so what they have done is gone back and they've created open green space. They've master planned a very beautiful community. They've listened to our requests. Because it's already approved to move forward, it's not going to, I mean, no matter what we decide, they could have the ability to move forward and put the houses on the property. And that was determined back in 2006. So I think that's something that is very important for us to remember tonight.
Thank you. I want to make sure that in your staff report, you know that the staff does a great job of determining tax values and what might happen. Now, the tax values in your staff report may be adjusted a little bit, but we're talking about $122 million. Wow. Total values of the property. And then, so the city gets the biggest part of that. The next organization that gets the most is your schools. So based on those values, that is another way that kind of growth pays for growth. You build the houses, it's just like roads. You build the houses and you pay the taxes and you have mill rates for schools, and then a lot of money is put into the schools that way. That's just another way that at least this, we're not like building houses and the school doesn't get anything. They do get some money from the construction. And there's no, for the rental properties like the fourplexes, valued at $650+ you don't get a homeowner's exemption, so you get all of that tax revenue coming in too. So anyway, I just thought throw that out there because we've talked about growth. Again, don't want to get too much into the schools though. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So Jane, I'm critical of the initial proposal, but this proposal I do like. Thank you. And I have to say that you impressed me with this. However, I am concerned with one part of this, and I don't know exactly what part of the city will have to endure. Maybe this question is not for you, but for Daniel, but you can answer this. The intersections regarding 1,000 new homes in 10 years, how do we know what's going to happen to those intersections and those streets and roads to be able to handle all that traffic? Do you have I know there's a traffic study here.
Bless you.
That was done in 2021, but is there an update information about this?
Update to the impact these would have on
To the traffic?
to the
Are these
traffic.
major-
I mean, these are pretty recent numbers.
Are they?
Yeah, they're pretty recent numbers. This traffic study will stand the test of time, I think, on the amount of things that are done. Now, it would not be unusual, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, this traffic study was done with the idea that there would be an east-west collector, but was not taking advantage of the fact that we might have a north-south connector directly to Karcher Road through that enclave subdivision. So one of the things we might want to say is, 5 years go by and there's development south of us because we're extending sewers, that kind of thing. We might want to revisit the traffic study just for that very reason. It sounds like to me, it's like, wait a minute, we have a point in time and we've done a good study, but we don't know what's going to happen to this whole area. Yeah, there's property, commercial property north and east of us that could just, go out of control. That's a lot more traffic. It'll be up to you to decide where the connections are and how many driveways they can have.
Well,
But I think I know what you're saying is like maybe we put it in there when traffic reaches something, or maybe in 5 years we re-look at the traffic. That would give us a.
That the traffic study indicated a smooth transition through, let's say, Flamingo, Middleton, Midway, Smith, Highway 55. Would it be for a roundabout or for a traffic light? So that is concerning to me at this point, but that's not going to stop the project. But I just kind of want to have better planning and I'll call Daniel up here.
Daniel will let us know if he
And we'll
wants a
go from-
traffic signal there at Midway and Cirrus, Flamingo, or if he wants a roundabout there. Because I think either one of them would suffice for the traffic, but we might want to take a look at that again when we get to that point, because that'll be like in phase 2.
Oh.
There might be some other homes there and other things going on in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, thank you for giving us an update. I think the one thing that we did see is that the development itself is doing extensive roadway improvements to around the project. So Daniel, thank you.
So Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, Jane is correct. The traffic study, the date on that, it's from last year. The numbers that we've looked at, I would not be concerned with needing an update for that right now. The traffic numbers in this area have not changed significantly. What we do look at as additional developments come in, as they do those traffic studies, they look at the traffic volumes that are projected in this and add that in, because we have more development come in and not all the homes are built here. And so as they look at that, they add their traffic volumes and use these in the base numbers until the homes are actually there. And so as they do that, they would be looking at, okay, what are those projections happening over time? So this particular project would not typically do an updated traffic study, but as other projects come in around there, their traffic studies will update and freshen up those numbers and give us a better picture as we travel along. The entitlements that we look at on these, we typically are looking at a snapshot in time, and that's where we establish their entitlements, their land use requirements, their development, and infrastructure improvements that they're required to do. And then as additional development comes in, they use those as those background numbers and build upon that to determine what new improvements are needed as new development comes in as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Are there any further questions for Jane or Daniel while he's here?
So, Mayor, any comments or just questions?
Well, we'll have comments and discussion after we
after
close
public hearing?
public hearing. So right now, it would be, Jane, do you have any closing comments beyond or following Daniel?
No, and I appreciate Daniel's clarification on how this whole traffic study thing works. And I'm just asking that if you do have concerns about what we can do to make the project better, that we share that now so I can say yes.
And Mayor, I did ask a question earlier that I don't, and I may have interrupted, who knows? That would be nothing new. As far as the 55 plus, I closed public hearing, but to me, until this other issue gets resolved with school districts, which they've been short-sighted, I'm sure, is that would, the first phases or whatever, that would be beneficial of not having young kids moving in at the first 2 or 3 years possibly. So anyway, is that even a consideration?
I don't have any authority to make that, because that is a product style that the owner doesn't build for, which would mean changing designs for over 55. We're doing fourplexes and duplexes and townhomes that may or may not. Yeah, the only thing I can say is that with the townhomes, some of those units are small enough that you might not find families with multiple children, but I don't know that I can say that. I mean, that has not been one thing. We've talked a lot about changes, but we did not talk about an over 55. Again, I mean, we are talking about an opportunity to build 100 homes by the time, I'm sure that there will be some movement on our bonding. I know you're bond weary, as you said before, but I believe that this community will stand up and support the schools. So, and
Jane, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hold on, I have one more for Jane.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor. Jane, you said that Corey Barton has been speaking with the Valley View School District.
Yes.
What agreements have they made? Are you aware of any at this point?
I'm not privy to those, but I do know they're meeting again on Thursday to have another chat. He meets with Joey and
Lisa.
Lisa. And yes, I know that they've had an introductory meeting and they decided they would meet again to talk about specifics. And I don't know. Again, let's say Corey decides to donate land in North Caldwell, part of Valley View. I'm not going to be able to use that so much right now. Plus, land doesn't equal a school. I mean, we need the bonds to get the schools. So I hate to keep bringing that up, but we seem to be stymied there, so.
It's just, yeah, I think for me, that would have to be a condition of approval for me, is to know what that condition would look like so that we would know.
But here's the thing, I think we've already addressed that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, we
can't
can't-
create
we
a
cannot
condition
do
of
that.
approval that says we pay the schools. You don't have a
Right.
mechanism for that.
right.
So, anyway.
Right, we have to, yeah, we'll have a discussion after this. So, thank you. I would stand for a motion to close public hearing at this time. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, council discussion?
Mayor, I'll be
Yep.
voting in favor of this, even though I'm concerned. I think the one thing, you tell Corey or whoever's there, talk to them, because I've talked to, not to the school boards, but to individuals, principals in both districts. And Valley View does not have an open enrollment for Nampa school districts. And for instance, West Middle School is not at near capacity. So what are these two school boards, maybe they can, hopefully partner and start sharing some open enrollment with each, separate, unless there's some state law and maybe legal is aware of that. But that's just something that I would just suggest that they at least talk to them about.
Okay. Rodney Ashby, yes.
Mayor, just wanted to inform you that we have a meeting on Wednesday with planning and zoning, as well as the two school districts for that exact reason.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments from council at this time? I many times don't say this is the council discussion time, and I just want to say what you have come back with is excellent. It's a reflection that you've been listening, both from a design standpoint, from the detached sidewalks, everything that where we are wanting to move, you guys listened very well. And even in the various design standards and really trying to create a very great subdivision. I think one of the greatest challenges we face as a council is that, and I won't be voting, I will say that, but I do want to say, is that people are so opposed to growth and very concerned about the issues we've discussed tonight. And I've already said this, but I think it's so important, and I want to make sure that anyone that listens later understands this. This is already approved. This is an annexation and a PUD that has already been approved. And so the density is shifting just a little bit, but it's very minor. What's great is that it is in alignment, and I was hesitant early on because of the fourplexes. But when you look at what Caldwell's approving right next to this, actually what you guys are doing, you've provided a really nice project, and you've listened very well. And I just want to say thank you for doing so. Thank you. We're still in discussion, council discussion, yes. But somebody can make a motion unless someone else has comments. Yes.
I know Caldwell has a lot of these fourplexes. Can I look on the map? I haven't driven by because we're not supposed to. Is there, like, when we come towards Nampa, is there also duplexes, fourplexes, or is it more just neighborhoods?
So Councilman Haverfield, just so that they can hear what you're saying, do you want to lean into your mic? Thank you.
Mayor Kling, I know that there's a lot of development happening in Caldwell. My concern, or not my concern, my thought is, if there's such a concern about the Valley View School District being overburdened with students, why isn't Caldwell facing this issue head-on? But the easy answer to that is, like in California, during the boom when there was so much growth down there, whole schools were being developed with modular buildings. And they were able to shift with the flow of population quite easily. And I can see that that could possibly be happening here for a while. It's not the same type of quality environment to learn in, but it is a learning environment that's available. So modular units, I know Nampa Christian is just purchased 2. They've got enough students already to have an extra class at every level. So we're in discussions with them on growth. So, but the students, as far as in the public school system, it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. As the student population grows, then the state funding is available per student, which is money that then go towards the educational process. So it's a topic bigger than us, and that's what I think that we're being told tonight. If Valley View was so overburdened, it's not from us, it's from Caldwell's growth. So, and they're not coming in with a request for a 55 and older community, so we can't impose that on them. We've already been told that. So I believe that the development, as it's been refined, and Jane is laid out for us as a fine development, the 75-25 ratio split as far as with home ownership versus apartments, I think is a good mix. 25 or 27% open space, that's great. So I'm in favor of the proposal as it's been presented to us.
I think there was one other comment, or is there any other comment? Okay, what's the will of the council?
You gonna make the motion?
No, I'm gonna have you make the motion, but with the, hopefully with the extra parking spaces as a condition of.
Well, I was gonna make the motion to approve this development as it's been refined and presented to us this evening, with the only other condition being added to the recommended conditions of approval would be the additional 12 parking spaces that has been discussed.
I'll second.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up, it was my understanding that half of the parking would be covered parking. That was a statement made, so promises made. One space per unit. Okay, so,
It's covered.
all right, that's fine.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jangula,
No.
Bauer,
No.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
3 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Here, you're getting off light.
You probably would have been.
You probably would have been, yeah, I was just thinking that.
Actually, I know how I would have voted. I would have supported this, and I said it earlier, because I think they've done a really good job. I appreciate the fact that they've listened to what we've needed. And when a developer invests, it would be different if this were not already annexed and there a development in place, an agreement in place. I think they've done a good job. Either way, there were going to be a lot of more homes coming in.
Thanks.
You do a great job, Jane.
You're
Thank
one of
you.
the best.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Okay, our last public hearing this evening is item 6.4. This is an action item, and this is to consider the pre-annexation fees zoning text amendment, request to change portions of the Nampa City Code in Title II, Boards and Commissions, Title VI, Police, Title 10, Planning and Zoning for the City of Nampa Planning and Zoning Department. Christie.
We just make a motion.
I know. We'll see how fast we can be.
He wants to do that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You are more than welcome to make a motion.
Well, we got to-
Actually, we do have a public testimony, but I don't know if we need you to go into a long presentation. Council, do we need a presentation? It's in our packet.
Okay,
Okay.
so I do want to just quickly touch on the parking that the work group came up with, just so you guys are familiar with what Jane was referencing here. That she's willing to match what our new parking code, should you approve it. That our work group, which Councilwoman Jangula was a part of, decided that they wanted to add into the parking code that all required parking spaces shall not have a separate fee for tenants with a signed lease. That units with one bed should have 1.5 parking spaces per unit with one covered. 2+ beds should have 2 per unit with one covered. And then 0.25 spaces per dwelling unit shall be provided for guest parking. And then if they have, in their lease, if they have garages, they can consider those in the parking calculation. They will need to be managed by an HOA, and they will need to ensure that they are used for parking and not storage. This is verbiage that can be included in their lease. So we just want to make sure that you were familiar with that change and the fact that it did go through the work group. Various other ones have gone to Design Review Committee and Arts and Historic Preservation for those changes. So it has been reviewed by other organizations and departments within the city. I will stand for any questions.
Mayor,
Yes.
so Christie, the additional parking, that included the ADA spaces then?
Yeah, that's a building code, and that is an addition.
But that could be included in that, the additional spaces is the ADA?
No,
Or there is ADA above and beyond that?
that's above and beyond.
So the parking requirement, depending on the type of housing project, I guess, if it's a commercial project, it would be subject to ADA compliance, correct?
That's correct.
Not just a regular subdivision?
Correct.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll let you just stay right there. Are there any other questions for Christie at this time? See none. This is a public hearing. We do not have anyone signed up to testify on this particular matter. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to testify or had intended to? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you much.
Second. Oh,
It's
All
been
One
moved
more.
and seconded, so let's pause.
One more
Before-
question.
But we can still ask Christie questions because she's,
I was just wondering who all was on that committee.
Oh, gosh.
Is Matt Garner on the committee?
Yes, he-
Councilman
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes, he
We
was.
had, we had two committees that met that day. So you're asking me to separate the two from each other. Were you on that one, the parking one? You weren't on the parking
No, I
one.
was.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
yeah.
parking, and Matt was in, was Matt
Rodriguez
in
and
our room?
Jangula.
I think so. Was
Matt
in
was
both
in
of them,
there.
so.
That was
Yeah.
on the first one.
He was on the first
never
one.
mind.
Okay.
Yeah, there were two that day, so.
Because I know he had some concerns. I didn't know if it got resolved. So if it came out of that committee with his recommendation.
That was their recommendation, yes.
In fact, we followed a lot of his recommendations.
I've trained him well.
You did. You did.
So there was a motion to close public hearing and a second. We're in discussion. Is there any other discussion regarding closing public hearing? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
With that, council, do you have any further questions, or what is the will of the council?
Mayor, would you like, since you started this, would you?
I just wanted to say thank you for staff especially and for council for hearing this and wanting to make a change or being willing to, because it is a concern of mine when I'm approving projects. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do it. So thank you.
And did you want to make the motion?
Yes, I will make the motion to consider the pre-annexation fees for the zoning text amendment requested to change the portions of Nampa City Code in Title II, Boards and Commissions. Do I need to read all this? Title VI, Police, to the Title X, Planning and Zoning, as stated. Oh,
With conditions of approval as stated?
with conditions as approval, as stated.
Probably not.
No condition.
No conditions, no conditions
No, it's
here.
as presented in the staff report.
As presented.
As presented in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And Natalie, thank you so much for having the voice to consider this, and then staff, great job, and then participating in the process, and Victor too.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Even me.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Bauer. Haverfield.
Yes.
Jangula.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Nice job.
That concludes the public hearing portion of our meeting, and that does conclude regular agenda items. At this time, I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061 to communicate with legal counsel for a public agency to discuss legal ramifications and options for pending litigation or controversies yet to be litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Brunner. Jangula.
Yes.
Bauer. Haverfield.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. All in favor, motion carries.